Chapter of the National Association of Catering and Events shows over half of responding Dane County venues and event-related businesses lost 75 to 100% of 2020 revenues. After announcing on December 28th that she had tested positive for COVID-19, Representative Gwen Moore voted from the House floor yesterday. She put out a statement that she was medically cleared to travel and her quarantine period had ended. Forecast of dense fog throughout the morning today with overcast skies this afternoon and a slight chance for flurries. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Happy first Monday of the new year, Dominic.
Hey, Crudy. Happy Monday, man.
And happy Monday to Fancy Brian, our fabulous producer.
Hell yeah. Happy Monday.
Buddy, I can't wait to talk about you. You, Fancy Brian.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I was a menacing man.
You snuck up on me in the midst of my Netflix and chilling over the course of the weekend. Found you on a Shameless episode.
Yeah, that was fun. That was one of my favorite episodes to do. I can't wait to tell you about it.
It was like 1:30 in the morning. I jumped out of bed and videoed a little of the screen. I was so impressed. And then the next day when I woke up the wife and showed it to her, she was also very impressed. Shameless, we're in the middle, but you, a wonderful addition.
Oh, it's a fun story too. Like that was the most interesting shoot I've been on, most likely.
It was a fun episode too, that particular one. We'll talk about that later. We have joined the live lineup at AM 950 in Minneapolis. So We're excited about that. A big day for this little endeavor.
You're welcome, Minnesota.
We're live. We're live on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. So that's new for us here in 2021. Still going out on KGOE 1480 AM in Eureka, WADR 103.5 FM, Janesville, Wisconsin, WTTN 1580 AM, Columbus, and of course the mothership where we're originating from today, Devil Radio 92.7 here in Madison. So it's the Devilish Network.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. We appreciate everyone. Happy New Year. Happy 2021. Hopefully it'll be a little different from last year.
Yes. Except last year. We started 2020, if you'll recall, Dominic, talking about the impeachment of Donald J. Trump, right? That was the big news, the big happenings.
Absolutely.
As we turn to 2020, COVID not quite on the radar yet. And today, as we start 2021, our first big live show of the new year, Dom, we're talking about impeachment 2.0.
Let's do it. We have 16 days to impeach the traitorous bastard.
The MFer. Perhaps he merits impeachment, Dom. He merited it the last time around. But new sound. This sound out of Georgia, so very troubling. You know, if you've heard the Nixon tapes, this newest tape of Trump is like, hey, Nixon tapes, hold my beer.
Right.
We've got some of the sound. Going to need your help, Fancy Brian, right from the top here. I'm going to let you call them down, but we got a whole series of Trump talking to the Republican Georgia. What is he? The Attorney General or Secretary of State?
Secretary of State.
SOS, yes.
If it was the Attorney General, that would make it even more ironic in the criminal nature seemingly of this phone call, the obstructive nature of this phone call. It was a quid pro quo, or at least it was an attempted quid pro quo.
You can't blame a man for trying,
But
Crudy.
my thought was Trump had nothing to leverage Raffensperger with. There was no quo.
Lots of quid.
Well, lots of whining. That's all he had. All he had was whining. He didn't have the facts on his side. And he didn't really have anything to offer back to the Republican Secretary of State.
No missiles or anything like that?
No armaments.
No.
Do me a favor, though. Well, there's no favor. You are not reciprocating Trump, but perhaps another impeachment merited. Let's get into the sound. Fancy Brian, if you're ready, I think we're ready.
Let's do it. Start out with cut number 10. Here is some of Donald Trump in the now famous, infamous second impeachment reason, ? Let's go cut 10.
The people of Georgia are angry. The people of the country are angry. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
Yes, Mr. President, we certainly appreciate your position, and I'm glad you brought this to our attention. Unfortunately, the data you have is totally wrong, but other than that, you're right on the money, sir.
That's the nicest way I've ever heard anyone call another person. You're a liar.
You're a liar.
You're full of, you know what, malarkey.
Let's hear some more. Cut 11, please, Brian.
Do you think it's possible that they shredded ballots in Fulton County? Because that's what the rumor is. And also that Dominion took out machines.
I heard it on the internet. I mean, I had a Parlor meme that I saw, and that's what it said. So I'm wondering, do you think that's possible?
No, not really.
Should we have an investigation? I mean, look at all the allegations that are out there. How can we possibly have faith in this system with all these allegations,
Well,
Michael?
isn't it really Donald Trump and some right-wing co-conspirators, guys like your pal Rojo, Ron Johnson, U.S. Senator?
Oh, my.
Well, he went on the Meet the Chuck Todd. Rojo did. We'll talk about that later in this hour as well, Tom. But more from Trump. And this now infamous phone call, the Washington Post dropped this sound first, and then they dropped the whole phone call. And now we're sharing it with you, our fine audience.
Another reason to impeach the bastard, I think, absolutely. What was the specific crime? Well, this sounds like one to me. Let's play cut 12.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
That's all, right? Just find me 11,780 votes. Could you do that? Just help a brother out.
The outcome I'm seeking. I want the victory. Even if he won Georgia, that wouldn't really change matters.
Really, right. I mean, you don't have to be smart to break the law. That is obvious. We have President Donald Trump. But why? What is the end game? I mean, he's not going to, even if this were to happen, he flipped Georgia, well, he still loses.
Well, I think it's a multi-pronged attack, Tom. You got to start somewhere. They've rolled out multiple lawsuits in the state of Wisconsin. We've talked about those. And there's new news on one of those that was filed in the D.C. district. But, Dom, you got to win on some battlefront, Georgia. It's just the latest battlefront. Only somebody taped this conversation, and the question becomes, whom taped it? Who leaked the tapes? Lordy, there's a tape. But was it Raffensperger or was it Trump? Because the clearest voice on every single recording is Trump's voice. And he wasn't even unaccompanied on this phone call. There was the cheetah woman.
From Foley and Lardner.
From Foley and Lardner. And, of course, Bradley Foundation, which is a big, conservative, well-funded think tank out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yeah, we'll talk about all the cast of characters.
There are lots of characters.
But let's move through the perhaps impeachable obstruction of justice, the willingness to try and overturn the outcome of the election for his own benefit, and a little pressuring, a little federalism in action, pressuring a state official in Georgia. Let's continue with
pressuring them to lie and commit felonies themselves. Cut 13, if you would, please, Brian.
I think you have to say that you're going to re-examine it, and you can re-examine it, but re-examine it with people that want to find answers, not people that don't want to find answers.
So,
like Rudy,
do it again.
Rudy's
Give me another
available.
report and have that report tell me what I want to hear.
Haven't they thrice counted the votes in Georgia?
I believe that is correct.
Thrice. 1, 2, 3.
Let's keep going on the Trump call. Cut 14, Brian.
The people of Georgia know that this was a scam. And because of what you've done to the president, a lot of people aren't going out to vote. And a lot of Republicans are going to vote negative because they hate what you did to the president. Okay? They hate it.
So he's also tying in the runoff election that happens in Georgia, of course, tomorrow. That's happening on January 5th. And Trump's blaming Raffensperger. If they don't turn out, that's also your fault because you've done me wrong.
And don't you love it when crazy people refer to themselves in the third person? I mean, the Dominic think that's a terrible look. The Dominic wants to continue. The Dominic suggests we play cut number 15.
You know what they did, and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal. That's a criminal offense.
Well,
and you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan.
I mean,
your lawyer. That's a big risk.
If you don't do what I tell you to,
little veiled threat.
I think
thinly
so.
veiled threat.
Hey, forget about it. Those some beautiful windows you've got there. And if you buy this insurance from me, I guarantee you your windows will not break. And if they do break, we will replace them and find the perpetrators who did that. But unfortunately, if you do not pay me, I cannot guarantee you that your windows will not break tomorrow.
But there's no quo. There's no hook. There's no reason for this guy to overturn the will of the Georgia voters or bend to Trump's will. At least none offered yet.
Oh, there's plenty of reason why, Crudy. Look at the rally sizes, cut 16.
It's pretty clear that we won. We won very substantially, Georgia. You even see it by rally size, frankly.
Yeah,
I got the biggest rally size. That's what all the girls say.
Cut number 17, going to be costly.
Brad, what are we going to do? We won the election, and it's not fair to take it away from us like this. And it's going to be very costly in many ways.
Just a couple more, cut 18, please.
We hear they're shredding thousands and thousands of ballots. And now what they're saying, we're just cleaning up the office. I don't think that plays.
Mr. President, the problem you have with social media, people can say anything.
No, this isn't social media. This is Trump media.
Trump media.
Yeah.
They're saying it over on Trump media. Would that be the Fox News or the
OAN, Newsmax? I mean, there's so many now. Let's throw the last one in there, Brian, if you would, cut 19.
You should want to have an accurate election.
I mean, they counted 3 times.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
No, I know you don't. No, you don't.
No.
You don't have. Not even close.
No, I mean, I won. I mean, I know you counted 3 times, but look at the size of the rallies that I have. People voted for me. Millions of people voted for me. I won. You're wrong. Change it.
And now he's going down to Georgia tonight.
Trump
I guess
is.
he does. Trump is.
Or a rally.
A little rally in Georgia. I understand he doesn't want to. He's got to air some grievances.
Yeah.
Come back with us. We are the Devil's Advocates. Welcome, AM 950 AM listeners. More Devil's Advocates on the other side. We'll open up the phone calls soon, but not quite yet. Be patient. We'll get there.
Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
I'm the president of the United States. Don't ever talk to the president that way.
Man, you are one pathetic loser. Stop whining.
The Devil's Advocates. Ass, grass, or cash. Nobody rides for free.
Santa, what if the kids have unrealistic requests? Like they want a dog for Christmas, and the parents don't want to get another dog for Christmas.
Actually, Santa doesn't carry live animals. And there's a reason for that. At 36,000 feet, a live animal and a little wind current doesn't make a pretty sight.
I swear to God, I thought turkeys could fly.
Yeah, but puppies can't.
We did it. All across this nation, voters like you turned out in record numbers to elect Joe Biden. Now, it's time to come together to address the issue that matter most, tackling climate change, expanding access to healthcare, ensuring racial justice, and putting Americans back to work. Text ACT to 668366 to join the Move On movement to build an America for all. MoveOn.org political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Hold.moveon.org not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
2021 Devil Radio advertising special starting at just $5.95 per month.
Call now.
Do we have your attention? Great, because Devil Radio advertising is a tremendous value. For one low price, we simulcast your message on 92.7 FM, 1580 AM, and our live stream, which alone reaches 50,000+ listeners a month. 2 professionally produced ads are included in each package. 2021 is the time. Devil Radio is the station. Find the sponsorship tab at devilradio927.com.
Bring it? Oh, it's already been brought in.
John Nichols, the national affairs correspondent with The Nation.
My fear is we got 50 million or more agitated Trumpsters, and reality is going to kick in. And then where do they turn that angst, John?
Oh, shoveling snow, probably. We have to accept that we've entered the internet troll stage of this country's history. I think most of these people kind of go back to wearing tinfoil hats or whatever and, living their lives. They're really not that threatening.
The Devil's Advocates. Grass-fed, locally raised, 100% organic. Dom and Cruz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, there's something we can all agree on. The fine listeners here in the great state of Wisconsin, of course, across the river in Minnesota. Well, the Bears still suck.
That they do.
Congratulations to my Green Bay Packers. We are well on our way to the Super Bowl or bust, baby.
Yes, and thank you, my Bears fans friend, Bears fan friend, Kuchka, for the $20. And congratulations, Minnesota Vikings. You won, but, Detroit did cover, so I like to think we all kind of won that game.
A win-win circumstance.
Those are the best circumstances.
Initially, my first media jaunt was in lacrosse, and we were in a split media market. So if I were feeling fortunate, the Packers were playing at home, and I'd drive across the state of Wisconsin.
Oh, when we were in college.
Like a 4.5-hour drive all the way over to the Green Bay game. And if I was less fortunate, although it was still super fun, I'd go up to cover the Vikings. And that was outstanding. The old stadium, not the new shiny $1 billion stadium, not that one, the old one, the big hefty bag. What was that called? The Metrodome.
Yeah, sounds right.
I've been to many games at the Metrodome, and the Vikings, one of my, favored other NFC teams, especially when they're playing the Chicago Bears.
Especially.
So anyways, congratulations. At least you finished strong, Viking fans. And the Packers were going to the Super Bowl or bust, and the Bears still suck. So we got that off our chest.
We have to, but the Bears, they made the playoffs?
They did. They backed in through ill-gotten tiebreakers or something.
So there's a chance. You're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance they're going to get smoked by Drew Brees and the Saints. But, NFC Central, NFC North, we'll cheer for them, kind of.
I was just saying the most 2020 season thing to happen would be the Bears makes the Super Bowl and then lose to either the Bills or the Browns.
Sounds about right.
They're not making it.
I know. There's no chance whatsoever of them doing so.
The NFC goes through Lambeau,
but it is any given Sunday,
And it is, coming off of 2020, anything's possible.
It's
Welcome, new AM 950 listeners, the progressive voice of Minnesota. We are the Devil's Advocates. We're live now. Live in your backyard. We'll give you the phone number. You can always be a part of this big show. I'm going to say it's slow. More so for Bears fans than Minnesota people. 844-967-2789. Devil's Advocates, 844-96-PARTY.
Oh, see what we did there? 844-96-PARTY. You can join us.
It is a political party. And we're going to have some fine guests on this big program. Don, we got former U.S. Attorney James Santelle going to talk about whether or not this newest encroachment on the democracy, whether or not perhaps this should be impeachment 2.0. Jim Santelle joining us in the second hour. That's after 3 o'clock Central. And in the Wisconsin happy hour, we're going to have State Rep Christine Sinicki. So looking forward to having her join us at 4:30 Central.
That's right. The Wisconsin legislature actually went back to work after 8 months. I mean, they're there today, right?
Masks optional, Dom.
Well, that's the Republicans wouldn't have it any other way.
Real quick, buddy. We got the outcome of the newest Trump lawsuit, the DC Circuit lawsuit filed by Wisconsin state lawmakers. A little bit of a chastisement, but this is a federal lawsuit, one of Trump's last gasps, right, buddy? Did you find that yet?
I didn't know we were going there immediately.
Well,
but
let's go to the phones immediately.
All right, let's
we'll
do
go
that.
there first, and then we'll come back with this newest update in the federal lawsuit. I'm going to give you a little teaser. It didn't go well for Team Trump.
No, normally does not.
I mean, really, that was some of the strongest worded legal opinioning I've seen. But let's go to our phones. Once again, that number, 844-967-2789. Your calls welcome here, like Andy from Beaver Dam. Andy, welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, Andy.
Well, you guys, aside having to win the 2 Senate seats in Georgia, what are we going to do with Ron Johnson? I mean, the guy sitting down there, Fort Myers, talking to Meet the Press.
Chuck Todd.
Yeah, what's Ron doing in Florida, man? Is Wisconsin not good enough for him in the winter?
He's probably got a condo on the Gulf down there or something, you know. My mother used to live there in that area, but what do you know, Ron is, I mean, the guy is really, and I don't see any people on the horizon in the Democratic Party. I heard somebody mention some Nelson, but who could stand up against, without the help of Milwaukee and Madison, who could stand up to run against Johnson in this political climate? You know,
well, 2022 is just around the corner, and I'll tell you, you've got at least 2 good candidates, and I don't want to get too stuck deep in the backyard politics, but Ron Johnson, I think nationwide, he will be the most targeted Republican senator come 2022, and I think that Sarah Godlewski, a very charismatic Democrat, she is currently the state treasurer, she will be a candidate. We know that Tom Nelson, he's the Outagamie County executive. That's sort of a reddish area, and he has won countywide. That's a unique point to his resume. I think that Mark Lasry, the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, I think his son, who has held a vice presidential role with that organization, I think that the very son of the very wealthy Mark Lasry, Alex Lasry, I think he's already got an exploratory committee for 2022. And Mark Pocan, our pal, progressive radio stalwart, he's often on the Thom Hartmann show all around the nation. Mark came out and officially declared he's not running in 2022. So it will not be Mark.
Kurt, do you have anything you want to declare or not declare today?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I would like to declare I will not run in the 2nd congressional here in the great state of Wisconsin in 2022.
That's Mark's.
Yeah, that's Mark's seat, man. I'm not going to run against Mark Pocan.
Good to know. Good to know. You belong on the radio, man.
Ask me about the Wisconsin gubernatorial race. I hear he's up again.
No, God, no.
Well, as I said, Dom, one thing we can all agree on.
Yes.
The Bears still suck.
They do.
The Packers are Super Bowl bound.
Yes.
Good luck to the Vikings in your next season, but congratulations on covering.
Yes, thank you.
That's always very important.
When the Lions cover, it's a good day for a Lions fan.
Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Phone lines open. 844-967-2789.
Still suck. They really, 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 really suck.
Personal foul. 69. Offense. He was giving them the business.
I'm going to talk to you about that, Ron.
From Bernie to Biden to even Trump supporters, Devil Radio is the political fix for every Wisconsinite. Always streaming at darnwi.com.
Are you a small business owner or professional that would like to be featured in your own weekly Ask the Expert radio segment or show on Devil Radio? Let us help you in your business team with our broadcast professionals to create the right show or segment, setting you apart as the go-to professional and as an expert in your field. All shows and sponsored segments are podcasted. It will be professional broadcast quality. Packages from $395. Call Devil Radio today at 608-819-TALK.
Over the years, we have done our best to bring you the highest quality products our industry has to offer, and we are very excited to bring you a new location just east of the Capitol at 951 Williamson Street. Now with 3 locations, there's an Ignite Glass and Gifts near you, no matter which side of town you're on. Madison's favorite for glass gifts and vape. Ignite Glass and Gifts, Monona Drive, Williamson Street, and Odana Road. Let's torch some glass at Ignite.
Donahue with an AP News Minute. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom says coronavirus hospitalizations and ICU cases are high and another surge is expected.
Hospitalizations, we've seen a 7-fold increase in just 2 months. On ICU admissions, we've seen a 6-fold increase in just 2 months. So it shows what can happen in a very short period of time.
In New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo says another surge is expected there.
Control the spread, control the virus, and then put a harpoon in the beast and actually defeat COVID.
A prosecutor in Wisconsin says a local pharmacist told police he tried to ruin hundreds of doses of coronavirus vaccine because he felt the medicine wasn't safe. 57 vials of the Moderna vaccine were spoiled, which officials say contained enough doses to inoculate more than 500 people. I'm Ed Donahue.
Donors choose. Support a classroom. Build a future. Did you know that every year, public school teachers spend nearly $500 of their own money for student supplies? Let's do the math. That comes out to over $1.2 billion a year. And that's just not right. At Donors Choose, we want students and teachers to have the tools they need for a great education. And now, more than ever, they need your help. Here's what you can do. Go to donorschoose.org and choose from teachers' requests that support reading, math, science, history, and more. Once a request is funded, we'll take care of shipping everything directly to the teacher. It's that easy. You'll receive thank you letters and photos from students and teachers and a report of how every dollar was spent. Teachers' needs have never been greater. Learn more at donorschoose.org. Donors Choose. Support a classroom. Build a future.
Furnished by Donors Choose.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines for Monday, January 4th. Senator Ron Johnson has joined 10 other Republican senators in vowing to reject presidential electors from disputed states when Congress meets to count electoral votes on January 6th, unless there is an audit of election results. The group cites unprecedented allegations of voter fraud, violations and lax enforcement of election laws, and voting irregularities as reasons to challenge electors while calling for an electoral commission to conduct an emergency audit of presidential votes. Senator Johnson joins this effort after the Trump campaign has had 6 legal challenges to overturn Wisconsin's election results, either dismissed or denied since Election Day. He is the only senator to join the effort who comes from a state Biden won in the 2020 election. Forecast of dense fog throughout the morning today with overcast skies this afternoon and a slight chance for flurries. You're listening to Devil Radio.
Dominic, we're going to talk a lot about Rojo, I suspect, in the next 2 years. These Republicans, and there's a lot of them, they're taking up this cause on Wednesday of this week, January 6th. The Electoral College, supposed to be a formality. Mike Pence supposed to go on the floor of the Senate and basically cast the electoral votes to Joe Biden. Easy peasy. Until Ted Cruz and your buddy Ron Johnson and another number of other Republicans, Josh Hawley comes to mind, they line up and they say, we're going to challenge the Electoral College outcome. Maybe we need an audit or something. You know, so many allegations of voter fraud and irregularities. Of course, they're the ones making most of the allegations of voter fraud or irregularities.
Right, and what an
them or
asinine
Trump
way to back into an investigation. Well, we have all these allegations.
Word on the street is there's bad stuff going on out there.
Right. Somebody told me once, I saw it on the internet. Of course, those are not reasons to have investigations. And let's be frank, we've had over 60 court cases that this administration, this campaign, the Trump campaign, has lost. They've lost. They won one court case a long time ago. It had nothing to do with any of these issues they are bringing up now. If Donald Trump had won this election, he would not be challenging it the way he is, nor would these Republicans, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, among others, Ted Cruz, nor would they be going through this motion.
844-967-2789. So your buddy and mine, Ron Johnson, went on the Meet the Chuck Todd this weekend. And he's not always had a great relationship with Chuck Todd. I mean, I'm not a big admirer of Chuck Todd, but at least he showed a little freaking backbone with Rojo this weekend. Let's play a little of this sound, and then we're going to get back to the phone lines. And your calls are welcome here. Once again, I'm going to say the number a lot, new listeners. 844-967-2789. Be patient, because we got some Ron Johnson and Chuck Todd sound.
He's
who'd want to miss
broccoli,
that?
people.
Don, why don't you call
Let's do it. The Chuck Todd cut number 1, please, Brian.
I want to quote Senator Ben Sasse for you, because what you're alleging is essentially you and your colleagues have created this controversy. So right now we are locked into a destructive, vicious circle in some ways, as you kind of outlined, which is you made an allegation that there was widespread fraud. You have failed to offer specific evidence of that widespread fraud, but you're demanding an investigation on the grounds that there are allegations of widespread fraud. So essentially, you're the arsonist here. President Trump is the arsonist here. You've started this fire, and now you're saying, whoa, look at this. Oh, my God. All these people believe what we told them because you didn't have the guts to tell the truth that this election was fair.
I think, rhetorically speaking, that's the most guts Chuck Todd has shown in his career on Meet the Press.
I'm often critical of the Chuck Todd, but that was probably the best line of questioning he's actually laid out for anybody that I've ever seen.
And what do you think Ron's response was? Chuck, Chuck.
Let's hear. Rojo didn't start the fire. Cut number 2, please, Brian.
Chuck, this fire was started back in January of 2017. People like Mark Zaid in his tweet. The coup has started, first of many steps, rebellion and impeachment to follow ultimately. This was started when the mainstream media dropped any pretense of being unbiased and actually chose sides during this election. This fire was started when you completely ignored, for example, our investigation of Hunter Biden. No evidence of wrongdoing there, and now we find out after the election, no, there is a fair amount of evidence to the point that we have a real FBI investigation.
Senator, what about Hillary's emails and Benghazi?
So what? And this is why I'm critical of Chuck Todd, because those things that Ron Johnson points out, this email or text from 2017, right? The mainstream media no longer, unbiased. Shame on you. You guys did all this. These have nothing to do with whether or not there was fraud in this election. They have nothing to do with the fact that Ron Johnson is using his own allegation as a reason to challenge this vote because there's allegations out there. But you have the ability, Ron, or you did, to do investigations. There have been 60 court cases. You do not address the specific issues. And oh, by the way, the unbiased media, would he bring up Russia too? Of course he did. There was reason to do that investigation. And why did Trump pardon all the people that were involved? Ron Johnson, you are an embarrassment. You are a joke. And of course, you're welcome on a show anytime.
He used to come on quite a bit, every couple months for years. He's been coming on for like 6-7 years.
Yeah,
he's hasn't been on in the new year. Hasn't been on since Trump lost re-election.
No.
And the only Republican senator from a state that Joe Biden carried, going to challenge the outcome of the Electoral College. And wonder why people are honing in on the
Hunter Biden
investigation.
Well, if there is an investigation, so let it play itself out. Hell, you did your own investigation. How come you didn't find it? Of course, he's a partisan hack.
It was a pumpkin spice nothing burger of an October surprise. Ron rolled out 2 reports? No, they're there, Ron. That's why the press didn't care about your allegations against Hunter Biden.
But what about the text in 2017? Let's hear some more. Ron Johnson on the Chuck Todd from yesterday. Loss of credibility. Cut number 3.
Senator, all right, I've had enough of hearing this.
Listen, I've had enough of this too.
No, Senator, it is. You have spent the last
situation
2 years
where Republicans and conservatives do not trust the mainstream media. And that is what has destroyed the credibility of the media and our institutions, and really
the destruction
shaken confidence
of
in
the
this election result. So I didn't start this.
So I didn't start this. They're going to challenge this because of what? The mainstream media? What has that got to do with it? So the mainstream media, Crudy, apparently they're in cahoots with all those Republican judges that were appointed by, I don't know, guys like Donald Trump, who ruled against him in these court cases.
Dominic, I love the logic of the fact the Democrats rigged the election, but we didn't bother to win the Senate.
Yeah, right.
844-967-2789. A couple more. Chuck Todd and Rojo, your buddy, not mine. Chuck Todd, you carry a lot of water for Donald Trump. Why cut 4?
Listen, you have spent, and I'm just curious, Senator, you have spent much of your time in the last 2 years carrying a lot of this crazy conspiratorial water for President Trump,
Kool-Aid, you might
whether it
say.
was the attempt to somehow blame Ukraine for the interference in the election rather than Russia. You've used your committee to sort of create the illusion of voter fraud, as you just described earlier, because there are, quote, allegations. I'm just trying to understand here, what are you doing it for? You're not trying to overturn the election, you just said. Are you simply trying to curry favor with constituents of the president's? Is that what this is all about? Is this a cynical political ploy?
You know, Ron Johnson came on our show, came in studio the day after he voted to acquit Donald Trump in the first Senate impeachment trial. And when I say first, that's because I'm presuming there might be a second one on the horizon. But our boy Rojo, right, didn't want any part of that. And said at that time, you know, the election has already begun, and we're going to leave it up to the American people to decide who the next president is.
Well, we'll only do that so long as the American people vote the way guys like Donald Trump want them to vote. And if they don't, obviously, because it didn't turn out for them, it must be fraud.
You see the hypocrisy there
Oh,
that
yes.
the American people have now cast their votes overwhelmingly, numerically, a huge number. I mean, Joe Biden won by like 7 million votes. And of course, Rojo's down for the Kool-Aid and the tin hats. And I knew it the whole time, Dom. But he wasn't this guy. I mean, this is a differing Ron Johnson than the guy we used to think we knew pretty well. Although I always suspected.
One more from Ron Johnson on the Chuck Todd yesterday. Cut number 5, please, Brian.
I'm trying to be transparent. You know, one of the things we found out in our hearing is, you know, the basic allegations kind of fall into 3 categories. I would say the first is the either violation of or lax enforcement of election law. There is voter fraud. There always is. We had one witness talk about 42,000 people voting twice in Nevada. The other issue
Just
really
because
is
you
the
have
fact that
somebody
the courts,
say it didn't make it true.
It's easy. It's easy.
Senator,
it's
none of
easy.
these allegations. Stop. You don't get to make these allegations that haven't been proven true. Here's what I don't understand. You understand how our government was set up. The reason we have a judiciary is because partisans like yourself weren't going to be trusted by the public to decide who won or lost an election. Let me ask you this. Who carried the state of Wisconsin?
Well, Vice President Biden has won by 20,000 votes.
Oh, are you sure about that, Ron?
844-967-2789. Going to the phones right now. Terry from Minneapolis, welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Hey, Terry.
Hi, guys. I want you to know I've been listening to your show. We got it over here by tape, but I'm glad we're finally live.
We're live, baby. We're doing it live, Terry.
Nice.
I know, and you guys have got a great show. I love listening to you. But what I want to say here is these 11 senators who are going to challenge the electoral vote that's an act of sedition. Along with the 106 that supported the Texas lawsuit in the House, none of those people should be set. You know, Pelosi should come out and say, you know, that was an act of sedition. You're not going to be set in this Congress. The senators, 11 that are challenging the Electoral College, I feel it's just not going to go anywhere. They're just doing it for smoke, and they should also be, you know, at the very least censured for their acts.
But Terry, are they doing so to play to the Proud Boys, the thousands of Trump supporters that plan on being in the streets of DC on January 6th? They plan on marching in the streets. I mean, these Republicans would hate to have this Proud Boy-led contingent marching up on the Senate office buildings.
Well, I think that honestly, I think that they are playing to Trump's base, the Proud Boys, and those other groups that are like them, because Trump is going to be gone. I mean, after all this, the election, all the votes have been counted in most every state 2 or 3 times, and it shows that Biden won. So
they've almost finished counting the Democratic primary in California from 2016.
Well, Trump's going to be gone, and they think that and I personally think this, Republicans think if they get Trump's base, they're going to make some leeway in 2022.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be detrimental to them. And I just, on top of being morons and hypocrites. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that about a Republican. But anyway, listen, I'll tell you, most of my family over here are Republicans. And, over the New Year's, what I heard from them?
What?
Well, what about Benghazi? I said, you know what? Quit the Benghazi crap. They investigated that. 2 Republican committees investigated Benghazi, and neither committee found any wrongdoing. So
Terry,
with the Benghazi,
give them the old, at this point, what difference does it make? I think that was Hillary Clinton's answer to Rojo in an 11-hour senatorial hearing. And above and beyond that, give them the COVID answer, man. It's tragic what the Trump administration, the malfeasance, the failure to lead on the issue of COVID. We've got 330,000 dead people. We'll have more people dying during the course of this commercial break than died at Benghazi. And it doesn't make those deaths any less tragic. But Ron Johnson, man, he could have investigated the campaign finance malfeasance of the Trump team and the NDAs and the payoffs to Stormy. And he gave a very Sergeant Schultz sort of answer. Oh, I see nothing. Well, you got a subpoena, man. You waited 3 years.
Well, not anymore. He doesn't.
And
no
then
longer.
You went and investigated Hunter Biden. He's still got a subcommittee subpoena.
Thanks for the call, Terry. I guess ultimately to answer your question, yes, I would like to see something happen to those who are so willingly getting behind this effort. Now, you got to have some leeway. Obviously, we have our process the way it is for a reason. But if nothing else, certainly electorally, I think there should be some pushback. But hell, if you're Donald Trump, you're giving away Presidential Medal of Freedom awards like candy.
Come back. You should hear what a federal judge said to the Trump supportive in the most recent litigation loss for Trump. Poor devils. I'll get it right. It's still a Monday.
Ron
Johnson is right.
Oh my God, we're burning alive. Ron
Johnson's right about
Ron
Johnson's being right.
Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
The Devil's Advocates. They refuse to do math on the radio.
Dr. Michael Hicks, professor of economics, director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at Ball State University. This is troubling math all the way around. According to your mathematics, Michael, when do you think the great state of Wisconsin will get paid back on its investment?
Right. I mean, the answer is the answer is never.
Biden won because of you. Because you stayed in line to vote even when you got tired. Because you knew that your vote is power. Because you understood what was at stake. And because you showed up, we now have the power. Text ACT to 668-366 to join the Move On movement to build an America for all. MoveOn.org. Political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
The Devil's Advocates.
There are lots of people that haven't made up their mind on this race. And you think, how could that be? No, there are. There are a lot of people that could still make a decision all the way on election day down.
Undecided voters are the biggest idiots on the planet. Try giving short, simple answers.
Like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. Yosemites, Yosemites.
Because freedom. I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but they are kind of a big deal.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open. We'll get there momentarily at 844-967-2789. Crudy, you've been teasing it. A headline from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel: federal judge scoffs at election lawsuit brought by Wisconsin Republicans and others. Patrick Marley
Called them
reporting.
the Trump supportive.
The federal judge Monday rejected the underpinning of a lawsuit seeking to undo election results brought by 2 Wisconsin Republicans and others, writing that it was riddled with errors, unserious, and brought in bad faith. Wow, when you put it like that, that sounds really bad, Crudy. The lawsuit by Wisconsin State Reps David Stefanet of Howard and Jeffrey Mersaw of Crivitz, among others, is rife with so many problems that their lawyers may need to be sanctioned professionally. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg of Washington, D.C. wrote. He noted the attorneys had not served the lawsuit on its numerous defendants, even after Boasberg reminded them they needed to do that.
Didn't serve the defendants.
No.
Now, I'm no lawyer, Dom, but I've received service before, and I know that's part of the legal process.
The judge writes, courts are not instruments through which parties engage in such gamemanship or symbolic political gestures. As a result, at the conclusion of this litigation, the court will determine whether to issue an order to show cause why this matter should not be referred to its Committee on Grievances for potential discipline of plaintiff's counsel.
Damn!
His ruling denied a preliminary injunction that sought to undo the certifications of elections in Wisconsin and other battleground states that went to Democrat Joe Biden. He goes on to write, in addition to being filed on behalf of plaintiffs without standing, and at least as to the state defendants in the wrong court, and with no effort to even serve their adversaries, the suit rests on a fundamental and obvious misreading of the Constitution. It would be risible were its target not so grave, the undermining of a democratic election for president of the United States.
Risible means a joke, right?
Laughable, yes. Plaintiffs cannot simply sue anyone they wish here in the District of Columbia. On the contrary, they must find a court or courts that have personal jurisdiction over each defendant, and they never explain how a court in the city can subject to its jurisdiction, say, the majority leader of the Wisconsin State Senate, he wrote. It is not a stretch to find a serious lack of good faith here.
Sanctions, baby.
Oh,
when you start sanctioning lawyers, and I mean, perhaps they should be sanctioned.
yes, it's about just for time.
Not just for the political asinine nature of the lawsuit, but when you fail to serve the defendants and the judge says serve all parties and you say, bah, screw you, judge. Sanctions. Bring them, baby. 844-967-2789. Going to the phones. Steve from Madison, appreciate your patience. What do you got for us?
Hey, Steve.
Hello, boys. First of all, yes, Ron Johnson and the Bears still suck. And I think Trump's head's going to explode and the Twitter machine's going to be taken off here, because I was multitasking and the Georgia election commissioner was on again for the last half hour or so, and he had his
he did
a
press conference,
Oh, my
Raffensperger at about 2:00. What'd we miss?
Oh, it wasn't Raffensperger. It was that commissioner that was the first one that came out and ripped Trump about the election. Well, he went down every point that Trump has been putting out, and he literally said Rudy and Trump, when they said something, he would quote them and bring out all the facts, and he had videos and all of this stuff to prove it. And if his head doesn't explode on this, I don't know what will. But he could be in rare form tonight at this rally they're going to have up there with all the yahoos in northern Georgia.
Oh, it should be a fine event. We will not broadcast that one, Steve.
Nor will we be there, Steve. Thank you for the call. More COVIDiots getting together with their cult leader. What a party. Who's bringing the Kool-Aid?
Dominic, I saw a new headline at the Washington Post. They're now calling these Republican senators, you, Ted Cruz, and you, Ron Johnson, and others, the Dirty Dozen.
Seems about right.
844-967-2789. Joe from Madison, welcome back. What do you got for us, Joe?
Hello, Joe.
Well, I'm glad you're starting the show with one of my favorite people, Senator Johnson, who is such a shining star for our state. And it was.
I'm a star. I'm a bright, shining star.
I do want to remind our folks from Minnesota who are tuning in perhaps for the first time and not aware of his illustrious knowledge base. This weekend, before all this blew up, I was thinking about something that you've often played, which is Senator Johnson's lack of knowledge about the federal drinking age. And you guys were the ones on your show that caught him being unawares that the drinking age had changed, 30 years previous, and he was unaware of that. And I was thinking about it, and I looked it up, and Ron Johnson has 3 children. And I thought, wow, this National Drinking Age Act was signed by Reagan. This guy has 3 children, and he was unaware that the drinking age had changed. I mean, you guys are parents. You know what the drinking age is, right? I mean,
well, we were also underage drinkers, Joe. At some point, we turned legal. But you know, the saddest part about Rojo, about Ron Johnson not knowing the state or federal drinking age, that was like the least newsworthy part of that interview. I try to get a couple of journalists of note, including Daniel Bice here in the great state of Wisconsin, to pay attention, because there was lots of newsworthy stuff that Rojo kind of stuck his foot in his mouth and acknowledged. And the least important part of that interview was the fact that Rojo doesn't know the drinking age. And that's the part of the story that made the national headlines.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, one of the more important and salient points about our senator is his sachet off to Moscow in 2018 on the 4th of July. And still no explanation of why that was so important to spend our nation's birthday in Russia. Although I think we could speculate that someday we'll find out, and it won't be that surprising if we pull that string, right?
Well, and let's not forget, Ron Johnson not only voted to acquit Donald Trump in the first impeachment trial, but Rojo, by all logic, really should have been a witness. He had evidence to offer. He was also the guy that went over and met with Zelensky and offered him the quid pro quo. You want the missiles? Got to do us a favor.
Ron, he said he tried to get Trump to release that money
in
earlier.
September. Yeah. Ron was up to his albino eyebrows in that issue. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. We welcome new listeners, AM 950 from the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. We welcome all our fine listeners all around the world at DARNWI.com. Come back with us, more of your phone calls. And then a fine former U.S. Attorney James Santelle in the 3 o'clock hour. But the phones, they're next. 844-967-2789. Dom, any final thoughts?
I'm just so stoked to be up live in Minnesota. We're very excited. Make sure you join us every single day, 2 to 4 here, Michael. And of course, having a U.S. attorney, a good friend of ours, James Santelle, come on and talk about these very issues. We certainly appreciate that. In fact, there was a U.S. attorney from, Atlanta who abruptly resigned today. I'm wondering why that might have happened.
Do you think Trump dropped a dime?
Maybe
it was Rudy. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates.
Ron
Johnson is right.
Having this all come out into public has exposed things that didn't need to be exposed.
I had to beat off.
I am a star. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I am a big, bright, shining star.
The data you have is wrong.
America has chosen Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to lead our country. Now it's time to get to work. Time to expand healthcare and tackle the coronavirus pandemic. Time to restore our democracy and unify our nation. It's time to put this administration to work for us. Text ACT to 668-366 to join the Move On movement to build an America for all. MoveOn.org. Political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Jimmy, crazy local music supporters have surrounded the studio. Take a look.
What do the signs say?
Support local music, double dipping is a right, and I love the Jimmies.
What do they want?
Live local music, Jimmy. Catch MaxInc Radio every Saturday evening for the best of local music from Wisconsin. And live music performed in the Devil's Lair. Go to MaxIncRadio.com for the live music schedule. It's MaxInc Radio, Saturdays at 6 on Devil Radio 92.7.
Give them what they want, rocker.
You're listening to W224EG and WTTN 1580 AM, always streaming at devilradio927.com.
News. I'm Ed Donahue. From coast to coast, the coronavirus outlook is grim moving into the new year. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom says a new surge is coming and hospitals now are at their limits.
The last 14 days, close to 4,000 Californians have lost their lives. This is a deadly disease. This is a deadly pandemic. It remains more deadly today at any point in the history of this pandemic.
In New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo is asking the people in his state to do their part to stop the surge.
Control the spread, control the virus, and then put a harpoon in the beast and actually defeat COVID.
Some healthcare workers have started receiving the second dose of the coronavirus vaccine. In Wisconsin, a prosecutor says the pharmacist accused of spoiling doses of the vaccine felt it wasn't safe. Gabriel Sterling with the Georgia Secretary of State's office was asked why the phone call over the weekend between President Trump and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger was recorded.
Given the environment we're in right now and political situation that we're in and the history of the president, knowing that he sometimes doesn't necessarily characterize things as they might have actually occurred, it was out of an abundance of caution.
The president is heard pressuring Raffensperger to find enough votes to overturn Joe Biden's win in the state's presidential election. Tonight, the president will be in Georgia for a rally. Tomorrow, there are 2 Senate runoffs in Georgia. Party control of the Senate is on the line. Vice President Mike Pence is warning conservative Christians in Georgia the runoffs may offer the last line of defense against a Democratic takeover in Washington. A healthcare venture conceived by Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, and J.P. Morgan to attack soaring costs is dissolving. Haven was formed in 2018. Stocks are lower at the close on Wall Street. This is AP News.
Donors choose. Support a classroom. Build a future. Did you know that every year, public school teachers spend nearly $500 of their own money for student supplies?
Hey, Jim Santelle.
That comes out to over $1.2 billion a year. And that's just not right.
Ryan, how are you?
At Donors Choose,
I am glorious.
and teachers to have the tools they need
You
for
can hear me all right? You can hear me now? The
now
question
more
I
than
always
ever,
ask.
they need you.
Yes, I can, sir. And you're getting better as you talk, so that's good.
Wonderful. Very good. Good. That's true of all of us in life, isn't it?
Yeah, we age
better and better.
yes.
Once the request is funded,
Unless your name is Trump.
shipping everything
Right.
directly to the
Exactly.
teacher. It's that easy. You'll
Wow.
receive thank you
Wow.
letters and photos from students.
So,
and teachers,
It's too
and a
much, isn't
report
it?
of how every
So we
dollar
thought that
spent.
January would be the
Teachers'
month we
needs
start
have
to
never
come
been
out of all of these
Learn more
things.
at DonorsChoose.
Might be the worst-
Oh no. Oh
First
no.
month in our
Donors
history,
choose.
I think.
Support a
It's been
classroom.
Time to realize.
Furnished by Donors Choose.
Trump is the Clark W. Griswold that's driving us all the way home. Oh no, you're in this the long haul.
The mash is a high rye with a touch of malted.
All
right, man.
Yummy.
All right, very good.
I got
All
your
set
sound.
to
You
go.
sound great. All right, buddy.
Wonderful.
It
Great.
sure
All
is,
set to
Jimmy.
go, Brian.
You
Thank
can
you.
read the story on the back of the bottle at any of these fine locations. Star Liquor, Woodman's, Trixie's Liquor, Vic Pierce, Miller & Sons in Verona, Steve's Liquor, Total Wine, and enjoy Rocker Rye Whiskey at the Lazy Oaf Lounge and Sal's Dark Horse. Find out more at rockervodka.com.
Bachman Construction is your one-stop for full-service design build projects, but our team also specializes in making repairs to your existing building. From problems from foundations to roofs, our team has seen just about every challenging situation imaginable. We provide quality construction to improve your business space. Quality is our foundation. Give Bachman Construction a call and let us know how we can create a better value for your space today.
Stream the Devils and progressive news and talk 24/7 at the Devil's Advocates Radio Network, Wisconsin. That's DARNWI.com. That's DARNWI.com.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
Real love
Hey, it's Pizza Box Mike. I've got a show outside the Pizza Box. Be sure to listen on Saturdays at noon on Devil Radio. There is a reason why they won't let me on Facebook anymore.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines for Monday, January 4th. Reports of new COVID-19 cases are averaging at around 2,000 cases per day in Wisconsin, based on data published by the State Department of Health Services. Of the people who got tested for COVID-19 over the past week, 31% were positive for the disease, according to DHS. That rate has been on the rise since December 25th, when it was at 24%. The city of Kenosha is making preparations for demonstrations when a charging decision comes over the police shooting of Jacob Blake. The decision is likely to come within the first 2 weeks of January, Kenosha's mayor and chief of police said in a statement. The Wisconsin Public Service Commission last week approved parameters for revising administrative codes governing distributed generation facilities that renewable energy advocates say are long out of date. You're listening to Devil Radio.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the first live show for the Devil's Advocates of 2021. We welcome a fine new audience as well. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Welcome to the political party. And Dominic, we got a good friend, a fine guest. He is James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, a favorite guest around here. Jim, welcome back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, gentlemen. Dom, Mike, good to be with you once again, and congratulations on the launch in our sister state to the west, another group of reasonable, rational, decent people who understand and appreciate facts and the notion that the sun does indeed rise in the east.
Well, most of them anyway, Jim.
And it was the setting of our last live party. We were up there for Super Tuesday. We missed Minneapolis. We'll look forward to getting there when the pandemic ends. But Jim, we started last year talking about an impeachment of the president of the United States. And we start out this year wondering, 16 days, man, an impeachment 2.0, Jim, is it merited in light of this Georgia phone call?
The answer will not be a surprise coming from me, which is that I believe that the president once again committed a crime this past weekend. Very similar to the kinds of things we discussed for 18 months or so in connection with the Mueller report, obstruction of justice. This time it had to do with his phone call with the Georgia election officials, Brad Raffensperger in particular, the Secretary of State, in which he said, the president said, I need you to find 11,780, he didn't say fake votes, but that was plainly his implication. That plainly, from my perspective, is in violation of both federal and, yes, to the extent that I've looked a little bit into it, Georgia law as well. And those are the kinds of things that federal officials should be looking at, Georgia officials should be looking at. When you are doing something that undermines the very notion of our democracy, access to the polls, the right of people to get a fair and decent election, that is in violation of federal and state law. And I can give you the specifics about that. I know Dom already has his 50 code, section 20511, open for the language, but it does criminalize the procurement, casting, or tabulation of ballots that are known by the person to be materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent. More gloss on that, but that's one of, for my count, 4 different ways in which the president, once again this past weekend, committed a crime as the chief executive of our nation. A hugely serious matter. And again, but for the fact that time is running out, I would offer it's yet another reason for the Congress to pursue impeachment proceedings. That won't happen practically. But in other circumstances, it certainly should. No president, no person is above the law.
Jim, we talked about the quid pro quo a year ago. And my thought process on the phone call, well, it was more of a threatening nature, no real carrot offer, just mostly stick. If there's no quo, can there be a quid pro quo, sir?
Right. Well, once again, I think you've identified exactly the issue. It's been offered, of course, that in addition to the violation of the election laws, you could describe an extortion situation here. The language, of course, the president, he says to Raffensperger and others, you can't let that happen. It's going to be very costly. Now, we can plainly put glosses on that and talk about what he did and did not mean about that. When you listen to the entire text and frankly, the recording of the conversation, you certainly get the sense that he is in the kind of proverbial way, shaking down the Secretary of State of the state of Georgia to find these votes, threatening, extorting him. As Michael Cohen said in his testimony to Congress a number of months, if not years ago now, this is what Donald Trump does. He says these things, everyone knows what he means. That's what Michael Cohen was describing. And when you look at that language, that's again a second pocket of things in the nature of extortion, of compelling someone to do something contrary to their wishes, contrary to the law, and telling them that there will be consequences if they don't do what you say. That's coming from the President of the United States of America.
Jim, there was legal counsel on the line, this Cletta Mitchell, who's got some Bradley Foundations and some Foley and Lauder ties, some Wisconsin ties. But Mick Mulvaney, I think, or was it Meadows, was on the call, and legal counsel that no one knew about, or at least her association with Trump prior, she was on the call. Did anybody think that this was a good idea, Jim?
Again, I have two reactions to this. Number one, in response to that very good question, this is a very bad idea. Frankly, I was just in a hearing earlier today, and I talked to a client, and I said to that particular client, this is not an argument that's based in fact or law, and we worked through it and got to a position where we can present to the court, present to anybody in a public forum what the truth is, what the truth supports. As a lawyer, you've got an obligation not to make misrepresentations, not just to a court, but frankly, in a situation like this. And that's one of the principal concerns that I have. We know that there have been an awful lot of lawyers recently making representations in the public domain that are unsupported, completely factually unsupported, legally without any precedent, and again, perhaps potentially subject to disciplinary proceedings. The second piece, when I think about this, is second federal law makes it a crime to conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person in the exercise or enjoyment of their right under the Constitution. One of those rights is the right to vote and to have a decent election. Well, we know, as you just said, Mike, that our president was joined on the call by White House Chief of Staff Meadows and two other lawyers. Now, if there was, we know from our past discussions, a conspiracy, can't do it yourself, have to engage with other people. It's an agreement to pursue something to an illegal purpose. I count 4 people there. Now, to the extent that there was a purpose there, we don't know about the pre-conversations, but not only in that conversation and presumably beforehand, again, if there's an investigation of this, those lawyers are also subject to review and investigation for what their involvement may have been in just a conspiracy to violate the law.
Jim, calls for a little speculation, counselor, but who do you think recorded and leaked the sound of this phone call? I've seen it speculated it was Trump. His voice is clearest on the recording, almost like they were in the room recording his speaker phone call.
Right, and if we get an investigation, we suspect we'll get an answer to that particular question, Mike. Just in the past hour, so this fellow named Gabriel Sterling, your news reporter just indicated, he is the voting systems information manager in Georgia. And again, to the extent your listeners and viewers have any free time tonight, even if you don't, you should listen to a portion of what he was just saying. He was asked this question, and again, there's an awful lot of pushback on the very recording itself. To the extent that your question has an answer out there, knowable, he basically said, yeah, we recorded this. Why? And again, paraphrasing what he said, under these circumstances where you have a White House and a president who routinely misrepresents what people say in conversations, under these particular circumstances, we thought it was wise and good and decent to do it, my word, not his, But in a situation where the president consistently misrepresents what others have said, now we know what the truth is. And so he is embracing it. And presumably he's doing that on behalf of the Secretary of State of the state of Georgia as well. Could be that many people were recording this conversation. We know at least that Georgia is not running away from the fact that they have a recording of this, and perhaps we're the ones in part who released it through the media.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, joining us via the Zoom. Jim, thanks again for stepping up. Always a pleasure to speak with you, my friend. Who would pursue any sort of legal action in this case? Raw story reporting young BJ Pack. He was the U.S. attorney down in Atlanta. Well, he apparently abruptly resigned today, citing unforeseen circumstances. So maybe it wouldn't be the feds. Now, we also have this other
Trump
issue.
drop another dime, Jim.
The OLC's memo suggesting that a president cannot be prosecuted while in office. I think that needs to be challenged. But Jim, if we all agree something was not right here, perhaps something illegal from a state perspective or a federal perspective, who would pursue justice in this case?
And you've just identified the two pockets, the two places where this could be pursued. The mere fact that a U.S. attorney would decide to leave the office under whatever circumstances does not mean that investigations go with him or her. And again, there's no out there in the public that, gosh, by firing or terminating or encouraging the resignation of a U.S. attorney, that shuts down a prosecution, as we've discussed in the past. That's simply not true. There are civil servants who are routinely pursuing these things. And so with respect to the 2 and 3 things that I've already identified in the federal code, and again, for your viewers here it is. Here's the federal criminal code, a prop every time recently that I speak with you. There's the federal criminal code. That is accessible. And under any administration, an independent and proper Department of Justice can and should pursue this with the FBI, with state authorities as well. And it is possible to pursue a criminal prosecution of people involved. You mentioned once again the OLC memorandum. As long as this president is in office, there is a prohibition, a policy prohibition, not a lawful, not a court-imposed prohibition against prosecuting him. But that changes again a little more than 2 weeks. And then the other pocket, of course, we've already mentioned, is the Georgia possibility. Georgia makes it a crime to willfully tamper with any electors list, voter's certificate, a numbered list of voters, other things, voting machines. And while the president arguably did not tamper with the vote, he has certainly solicited others to do that. The law goes on to say in Georgia, with the intent that that other person engage in conduct constituting a felony, soliciting other people to commit that act. That's under Georgia law. That is a law that plainly can be enforced by Georgia state authorities. Without the prohibition of the OLC memorandum, lots of opportunities down here along the way as we go down this road.
Jim, want to talk to you about the federal judge's ruling in the Wisconsin case, the new ruling. Hope you've seen that very
critical ruling.
Very critical ruling. That's an excellent way of putting it. And also the dirty dozen, the apparently 12 or more Republican senators that plan to challenge the Electoral College outcome on Wednesday. It's going to be a crazy week. We're going to need you on standby. But, Jim, we're going to keep you around for one more segment if you got time.
I certainly do. Delighted to stay with you.
Stick around. More Devil's Advocates. For those listening for the very first time, you're welcome.
I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document.
There was no quid pro quo.
Those were lies, plain and simple.
The Devil's Advocates.
I just wanted to thank Crudy for going up to the Capitol and decorating the tree. I think it was some of your finest jackassery.
Eddie, that's a real compliment because there's quite a history of jackassery with this man.
I'm in the legal books of the state of Wisconsin. My jackassery has been enshrined for posterity. I have set precedent with my jackassery.
I think you should take it to court, though, and you should tell the judge it's a matter of law and orderment.
Political commentary from the back of the class.
We did it. All across this nation, voters like you turned out in record numbers to elect Joe Biden. Now, it's time to come together to address the issue that matter most, tackling climate change, expanding access to healthcare, ensuring racial justice, and putting Americans back to work. Text ACT to 668366 to join the Move On movement to build an America for all. MoveOn.org political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Hold.moveon.org not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play date. They can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
Listen to Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
Thanks for the job you do. It sure showed in the Supreme Court.
But I just want to thank you guys for your program.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't get enough credit for this. We've never had a voice ever in this state. So I think you guys really need to take a bow.
Thanks again for your work. It's really important.
You need these guys. They're there for all of us.
You're welcome, everybody, and thank you.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. If you miss any of this fine program, please go online to domandcroot.com. You can listen to and download podcasts and interviews.
Dominic, our fine guest and good friend, he's stuck around. He is James Santelle, former U.S. attorney. We appreciate you doing so, Jim, because I still have more questions. What about these dirty dozen, these Republicans, including our own Rojo, Ron Johnson, that plan to challenge the outcome of the Electoral College? Now, I've heard something about a 10-day audit. I'm thinking, what, you insert a new process in the Constitution because like a dozen of you want it? Jim, what do you think this is going to look like when the rubber hits the road at the U.S. Senate on Wednesday?
Sure. And this is the kind of thing that, just like the campaign events that you have covered so very well, this is the kind of thing that you probably want to take a close look at throughout the day on Wednesday, because unlike in past years, virtually every other time in our nation's history when this very ministerial act has taken place, that is the president of the Senate, the vice president, literally just opening the envelopes. This time around, because of what the president and these others are doing on both sides of Capitol Hill, it's going to be hours before we get the final disposition of this. The result is still known. Joe Biden will be elected, will be identified as the new president, and Kamala Harris as our newest vice president. But we know that, as we talked before, under something called the Electoral Count Act, passed in 1887 after an 1876 messy type situation. It does vest in the Vice President of the United States of America certain ministerial actions. And among those, of course, is the possibility of members of the Congress to identify objections. Both houses of the Congress have to then convene and discuss these things and come back basically with a report to the president of the Senate, the vice president, certifying the election results. It's very clear that this will enlarge the period of time during which the Congress is looking through all of this. It will do it in a way that will not produce a different result. But as we have discussed before, once again, the impact of this is that it undermines people's faith in the process and suggests that in the hallowed halls of Congress, there is a reason to believe that this election was not proper, was a product of some illegal voting and all these other things that Frank Gabriel Sterling was talking about earlier today. That's the real downside of this. And that's the reason why the so-called Cruz 11 or 12 and these others in the House of Representatives rightly warrant our condemnation for the kind of behavior that they're engaging in and will engage in about 48 hours from now.
Jim, I've seen Ted Cruz labeled as seditious. I've seen Ron Johnson labeled as an arsonist. Neither one really appreciated the labels, but how would you describe them, Counselor?
I would describe them as people who don't understand what America is all about. who don't understand how none of the laws work. I would put the president, candidly, in that same category. He has demonstrated that throughout his term in office, and he fundamentally just doesn't understand how government not just works operationally, but what our concept of democracy is, what a republic is all about. And I would offer that these people, led by Ted Cruz and others, and appropriately getting those kinds of responses, that pushback from normal, decent people, including, for example, Liz Cheney, who has come out and said that this is appalling that they're doing it. I think it's appropriate to look at those folks and say, ask them legitimately, what is your purpose in doing this? You can be a loyal opposition type party, but your only purpose is not only to delay for a few hours on Wednesday, but once again, to send these messages which are not founded in fact, not founded in law, not founded in anything that is real. We talked before about the sun rising in the east. This is the sun rising in the west, is what they're saying basically, and advocating that on the floors of Congress. These folks, again, do not deserve the kind of attention, regrettably, they're going to get. And Ted Cruz at the top of the list. This is a man who, again, during the campaign, we all remember in 2016, had words of condemnation for the President of the United States of America, and now in a position to defend him, apparently compromising his own integrity in the United States Senate.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, for just a couple more minutes. Jim, I guess with regards to Donald Trump, again, this another call, another reason I think he is a traitorous bastard to this country. That being said, we have a process for opening these electoral ballots, right? I mean, there is a reason for that. While I may not like what Cruz and Johnson are doing, along with all these Republicans, seemingly they're following whatever process they think needs to be followed. Is there any, are they bumping up against any illegality in your opinion? Certainly we can criticize, but are they doing anything technically illegal?
They think they are not. And again, this both Article 2 of the Constitution, the 12th Amendment, this kind of obscure Electoral Count Act, which again, I know along with the Federal Code of Criminal, you've got right at the ready there. It does, in fact, permit this process to go ahead. The whole point of the election is to let people know who decides, who rules them, and the law was designed basically to permit that to happen. The drafters of the Electoral Count Act consciously insisted on this very weak role for the vice president to undertake, that he is responsible for opening, quote, all certificates and papers purporting to be electoral votes. In the event of a dispute, it says both chambers of Congress would have to disagree with a particular state's slate of electoral votes to reject them. And then the authors of the legislation also said that we're going to make it very difficult for the Congress to disagree. They added certain measures for a safe harbor circumstance and a certain other deference to the certification of states. The upshot of all of that, legal and statutory description, is yes, this is a process that is contemplated by the law, plainly by the Constitution. But again, it contemplated when you've got as we've often said, a there, when there's some basis for doing it, and there's some reason to believe that what you've got in those envelopes is not in fact real. That's not the case here.
Jim, I can give you 30 seconds to comment on the strong language of the federal judge on this unmeritorious Wisconsin suit in favor of Trump. What do you think?
Right. So the language is, courts are not instruments through which parties can engage in gamesmanship or symbolic political gestures. As a result of the conclusion of this litigation, the court will determine whether to issue an order to show cause why this matter should not be referred to the Committee on Grievances for potential discipline of plaintiffs' counsel. Here. This is the kind of thing that undermines not only my profession of many other people out there, but this is the thing that has to happen for all these lawyers running into court these days with unfounded causes of action on behalf of clients who do not have a claim to make.
James Santelle, we'll have you back for the impeachment 2.0. Appreciate your time today. Come back with us, everyone. More Devils.
Thanks, Jim.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Take care.
So we have people that are stupid.
People against goodness.
From the Capitol in Madison, this is Wiz Politics Midday.
I'm Stephanie Hoff, your host, and this podcast is brought to you by Spectrum. As a federal stimulus package makes its way through Congress, Wisconsinites might be able to look forward to their own relief bill. Incoming Senate Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu says Senate Republicans have created an outline for a COVID-19 package. Pat Bloody is on the line with me today to focus on what Wisconsin residents can expect I understand this bill includes some provisions similar to what the Assembly did, but it won't be nearly as long. Is that right?
That's what LeMahieu told us in an end-of-year interview, Stephanie. And to clarify, the package from Assembly Republicans last month is kind of what you're referencing there, and that was certainly a little bit more bulky. And that's actually something that LeMahieu talked about in this interview. So I'll let him take it from here.
Yeah, our caucus likes some of the areas that the speaker had out there. So some of our provisions are similar, if not exactly the same, but definitely we're not going to have 50 provisions in ours. And unlike the assemblies, which has, I think, about 100 million in appropriations in it, our proposal at this point has no appropriations.
Can you highlight some of the Senate's provisions?
Certainly a couple, Stephanie, though I think it's probably worth saying from the outset that our fearless leader here in the office, J.R. Ross, really pressed LeMahieu for specifics, and he wasn't really willing to offer them. When JR kind of went into the weeds on a couple things, he was willing to say, yes, this is in it, no, it's not. But for the most part, what LeMahieu said is that he wanted to find some consensus among his caucus before he really released any of this stuff publicly. But as to those details and specifics, he said he liked aspects of the Assembly Republican bill that would reopen the state capitol and state buildings and have state workers return to work in those buildings. But that's really as far into it as he got. Probably worth noting, though, Stephanie, he did say that the Senate GOP version would not have an aspect of a bill that would require payments to parents who send their kids to schools that remain virtual. Now, that was an aspect of the Assembly bill, and some of the more conservative members of the caucus have indicated support for that.
In a separate interview with WisPolitics.com, Senate Minority Leader Janet Bewley says it's time for lawmakers to move beyond picking fights on both sides of the aisle. But she's going into the 2021 session with smaller numbers. So what is the Democratic strategy to get things done?
It's certainly an interesting question, Stephanie, and probably an important one, noting that, as you just mentioned, they have lost members from what was already a minority. So Republicans in this chamber have even a larger advantage. But one of the things that Bewley kind of talked about here was that there's just so much coming up in this upcoming legislative session. There's the census, then there's redrawing legislative maps, there's the budget, and then on top of all of that, there's COVID-19 going on. And essentially what she said is that Democrats have to be able to do all of that, manage all of those issues, while also doing it in a way where the governor's veto is going to be used, and I'm going to quote here, intelligently and strategically, because you can't just govern by vetoing everything, which is what she said here. So I'll let her take it from here, actually.
So I think if we can simply stake a claim to the fact that the people of Wisconsin need action right now. We can break things apart, prove that we can work together in the early days, and then move on to the harder things. That might sound a bit naive.
Devil Radio, your fix for progressive news talk from Verona to Sun Prairie. Always streaming at DARNWI.com.
60% of the time, they're right every time. Dom and Cruz are the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Happy Monday to us all. Thank you to our most recent guest, a fine one, former U.S. Attorney James Santelle. If you listen to this show, you know we got him on call.
He's been very valuable for us. Who'd have thought that he would have been as busy as he is during this Trump administration? 16 more days, man. I can't wait for this to be over.
The only countdown I didn't hear is how many days it's been since we got the redacted Mueller report.
Right.
And they failed to act on it properly. Jim, he keeps score. Thank you, Jim Santelle. We'll have him round lots in the new year. Fancy, you got something?
Almost 630.
630?
622 last time. So I'm saying around 630.
630 days since the release.
Yeah, but that was
Give
only
or take a couple days.
All right,
Jim just came around like 3-4 days ago. Last Wednesday, I believe, he was last on the big show. But anyways, always love when Jim Santelle comes around. Always love when our fair audience joins this program, Dom. I'm going to say it slow for our new listeners up in Minneapolis. No offense to Minneapolis. I'm, just so you can write it down, memorize it. Welcome AM 950 listeners. Our phone number, 844-967-2789. We'll get back to the phones. But Dominic, there's another Republican co-conspirator, and he's a lawyer. And I think we should remind people, Louis Gohmert.
I did not know he had a law degree.
From the Raw Story, one of my favorite sources, as you know, Dom. That will not change in 2021, I suspect. Rep. Louis Gohmert has had a long legal career since graduating from Baylor Law School in 1977, but is now facing legal sanctions for his attempt to overturn the result of the 2020 presidential election. Now, here's a quote. A national lawyers group on Monday called for a professional licensing bodies to investigate East Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert and his attorneys for what it called a self-evident breach of ethics rules for lawyers when they sued unsuccessfully last week to try and force VP Mike Pence to overturn the results of the November 3rd presidential election. Now, the Dallas Morning News reported Monday, again, here's a quote, Lawyers Defending American Democracy, a nonpartisan group that says it has the support of 5,000 lawyers across the country, said in a statement that Gohmert, Dallas lawyer William L. Lewis Sessions, and unnamed other lawyers should be sanctioned for egregious conduct. We saw similar language out of a federal court in D.C. directed towards some attorneys here in the state of Wisconsin. But here's the quote from the Raw Story. The Gohmert lawyers, here's what they were told. They and other plaintiffs and lawyers involved in the suit invoked the 12th Amendment. The president of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all certificates and votes shall be counted. Lawyers Defending American Democracy said the amendment doesn't allow a vice president to pick which electoral votes to count for a given state, the newspaper reported. They and other plaintiffs, the lawyers involved in the suit, invoked the 12th Amendment. The president of the Senate shall, and the president in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all certificates and the votes shall be counted. Lawyers Defending American Democracy said the amendment doesn't allow a VP to pick which electoral votes to count for a given state. That seems redundant, but I read it twice. The U.S. District Judge Jeremy Kernodle threw out the lawsuit on Friday. Judge Kernodle was appointed by Trump. The ruling was upheld by a federal appeals court on Saturday. That was quick. Gohmert served in the Judge Advocate General's Corps of the U.S. Army, attained the rank of captain. Captain Gohmert? Surprise, surprise, surprise. He was subsequently elected a state district judge in Texas before then Governor Rick Perry appointed him as Chief Justice on Texas's 12th Court of Appeals. Gohmert was not only a lawyer, but a judge?
Yeesh.
Should be sanctioned.
The Tucson.com federal court swatted down latest bid by the head of the Arizona Republican Party to change the rules for counting electoral votes. As you mentioned, Kelly Ward, her fellow plaintiffs, filed their paperworks. It took just 8 hours and 3 minutes for the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals to rule. They have no legal standing to challenge the Electoral Act. The plaintiffs list also include Republicans, Louis Gohmert of Texas. The judges said all they needed to do was review what was filed in trial court, as well as the 13-page opinion of the U.S. District Attorney Judge Jeremy Kernodle, as you mentioned, who tossed the case only a day before on the question of the right to sue. We need say no more, the three-judge panel wrote in a brief unsigned order. We affirm the judgment essentially for the reasons stated by the district court. And Crudy, the judges, all appointed to the appellate bench by Republican presidents, including one tapped 3 years ago by President Trump, declined to say who, if anyone, might have standing to challenge the 1887 law that governs how Congress is required to deal with the electoral votes and a move by any federal lawmaker to contest the votes of any state. 8 hours. You're done. Throw them out.
Here is what Gohmert had to say in response to that ruling, the appeals court ruling. Gohmert hit back at the ruling during a Newsmax appearance later Friday. I guess that was the initial federal court ruling, calling the Electoral Count Act, which gives the VP only a procedural role in counting electors, unconstitutional, and stating, if I don't have standing to challenge that, nobody does. Well, apparently nobody does. a little bit more from Gomert. Basically, in effect, the ruling would be you've got to go to the streets and be as violent as Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Gomert added before being cut off by Newsmax host Emerald Robinson.
So
when you're getting cut off for too crazy for Newsmax, Louis, you're crossing lines.
So Newsmax doesn't like the thought of instigating riots on their programs?
If you can't win in the courts,
fight them in the street.
It's pitchforks and torches time in America.
844-967-2789. Mark from the SAC, you are up. Welcome, Mark. What do you got for us today?
Hey,
Happy
Mark.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hello, Mark. All right, Mark, call us back. Dick from Madison, Wisconsin, you are next. Welcome, sir. What do you got for us?
Hey, Dick.
Hey guys, Happy New Year. You remember when Johnson first won in 2010, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and that same year I went to a rousing victory party for Clockenberg at the Barrymore, only to find out about 8 hours later that somebody was driving around with enough votes to make Prosser the Supreme Court justice again. Why doesn't Trump call on this lady?
Kathy Nicholas from Waukesha County?
Yeah.
She could find more votes from Brookfield on her home server?
Yeah. And Johnson should have known that. And he could have coached him. And one other thing I would have to say, that wasn't the worst thing he said in that interview. I agree. But here's the worst thing about him, that he's our United States Senator. That's by far the worst thing about him.
But is this all an act to run for re-election to be the Trumpiest Trumpster of them all? Talking about Ron Johnson, or is he gearing up for a gubernatorial run?
Oh, good luck with that.
Or Dick, is he compromised? I mean, come on. Why would somebody, go through these exercises?
I think it's the very last thing, and I've been saying it, well, like Joe brought up at the beginning of the show. I heard it on the way home. What is up with that trip on the 4th of July 2 years ago?
And why did they call him Russian Ron Johnson?
A lot of people, Dick, really want to know about it. There's lots of allegations out there about Ron Johnson. Perhaps we should, have an investigation.
People are talking about it, Dick.
I saw something on Parler.
I recently heard someone call him Russian Ron Johnson.
Yeah, so, why would that happen?
Within like 30 seconds ago.
People are saying.
Dick, we should open up a full-scale investigation.
Absolutely, but I'm glad you remembered that gal's name because I couldn't.
I'm just here to fill in the memory blanks. If it's not for you, Dick, it's for
me.
Dominic.
Thanks for the call, Dick. 844-967-2789, 844-96-PARTY. Mark is back. Welcome, sir. What do you got for us?
Hey, Mark.
You got me this time, guys?
Yeah, we got you, man.
I got you, babe.
Okay, well, I'm knocked 3 times. The old song, apparently that came up earlier, but Don brought up the Medal of Freedom that Trump has been handing out, like, little, I don't know, party favors to his buddies.
Would you rather,
like Tic Tacs?
Would you rather have one of those or a pardon?
Oh, good guy. Well, both. I mean, I guess
right.
It's going to happen for some of the stuff. And for Ron Johnson, I mean, let's face it, the first act that Donald Trump took on coming into office was to ask the FBI director to let Michael Flynn off the hook. I mean, and this guy later turned out to, Judge Sullivan said the guy was guilty of treason, likely guilty of treason. And Ron Johnson didn't even want to have the trial in the Senate. He didn't want to look at the evidence in the trial.
There was no time, Mark. We're so busy.
Some things have come to public that really shouldn't have been out there in the public.
Well, everything. I mean, that whole thing should have come out in the public. I mean, that Donald Trump and say, well, there's allegations out there. Well, there's allegations that Donald Trump was engaged in a lot of wrongdoing and opened the investigation. And Ron Johnson's thought those things should have been ignored. I mean, clear evidence by professionals that Donald Trump was up to no good.
Mark, we had signed checks of $35,000 from Donald Trump, Don Jr., the Trump Organization, all payoffs to porn stars, man. I mean, there's credible evidence on the court records. They were introduced during the Michael Cohen pleadings.
And it's ridiculous that Donald Trump is engaged. It's a criminal enterprise that this guy has been involved in since he's been elected to office. And prior to that, the guy's life has been one criminal enterprise. And Ron Johnson doesn't think that should be opened up. But because some nitwit says, "Oh, I saw people shredding ballots here, or bringing in truckloads of ballots here," just some person just spouting that off, that's credible. But actual evidence is not credible. It is just a real stretch. Ron Johnson should be ashamed of himself, but he's not. And as far as Donald Trump's appearance tonight in Georgia, I hope he fills his diapers up and they leak.
Oh, God. Well, that's just to keep Alex Jones from eating his ass.
Thank you for the call, Mark. We do appreciate it, man.
That's not marinated.
844-967-2789. The Presidential Medal of Freedom, Crudy, given out to
I got two.
Jim Jordan and Devin Nunes, your buddy.
Devin Nunes. Devin Nunes was absolutely your buddy. And I would say that Nunes may have some criminality in his past. Let's not forget. My pal? He was part of that earlier, going in the back door at the White House, getting some information from Trump's team, and then running up to the front door of the White House and calling a press conference.
I got some new information. New information has come to light, man.
And he's done nearly as well in the court of law, talking about Devin Nunes, all his defamation suits against the cow having Twitter handles. Those haven't worked out well for him. But Devin, I question whether or not he's done anything of, questionable legality.
Now, come on, you have to question that about everybody who has anything to do with Donald Trump.
And then Jim Jordan has some allegations against him as a former coach at Ohio State University of looking the other way while there were hundreds of credible allegations against the team physician molesting people.
Sexual misconduct, yes.
Oh, but he didn't. He was completely unaware.
Jim GYM Jordan?
844-967-2789. Some really good friends. He hangs out with nothing but the finest
He
of people.
usually hires good people.
Epstein. I mean, I'm surprised we don't see more pictures of Trump and Jerry Sandusky.
There's got to be, 16 days. And I saw one of the Republicans tweeting out and suggesting perhaps to AOC to, force a vote or do something with regards to impeachment on this action.
Bill Kristol,
yes, thank you. There has to be a reaction. There has to be something more than people just, tweeting and talking on the radio and complaining about this traitorous bastard and the things he is attempting to do to manipulate our system. There's got to be something more. There has to be something real and tangible and consequential for this action.
Come on, our girl Nancy Pelosi barely made it back to Speaker of the House. Needed Gwen Moore to come out of COVID quarantine to get enough votes. Give her a couple days. That just happened over the weekend.
I hope Gwen's feeling better.
Nancy can fire up the impeachment machine. We'll see
do
impeachment 2.0.
Let's do it.
Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. More of your phone calls up to the 4 o'clock happiest happy hour at 844-967-2789.
He was not a credit to law enforcement, that I can tell you.
Surprise!
The guy was very, very angry and tired, and he wants to go home.
Senator Ron Johnson talking about staying out of bars. How does that pair with your thought that schools should reopen in the fall? You got a room full of school students or a room full of bar patrons. What's the difference?
Because schools, students, it's rare, very rare to have them have a very serious medical effect from COVID.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
You shouldn't have older school teachers or school teachers with some of the comorbidities.
Biden won because of you, because you stayed in line to vote even when you got tired, because you knew that your vote is power, because you understood what was at stake, and because you showed up, we now have the power. Text ACT to 668-366 to join the Move On movement to build an America for all. MoveOn.org. Political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates inviting you to join us on patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
The Devil's Advocates.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, our friend, live via phone. What about simply raising the age of weapons purchases to 21 years of age?
We're sending 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds over to Afghanistan, and they're dying. They ought to be able to vote. They ought to be able to have a beer, and they ought to be able to buy a gun to hunt with as well.
Are you suggesting we lower the drinking age?
No. Can't they do that now? What is the age nowadays?
It's 21, sir.
We drink when we toast. We toast when we drink.
Yikes.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. You can join us on the lines at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, want to welcome some new listeners today. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. We welcome their listeners. We're doing it live. You're used to hearing us at like midnight, but now every afternoon, 2 to 4 p.m., we'll be live in Minneapolis. And then, of course, you Wisconsin listeners, stick around. The Wisconsin happy hour starts at 4. Dom, we got callers in this hour at 844-967-2789. Let's go back to the phones. And Melvin Toaster, Madison. Melvin, welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, Melvin.
Greetings and salutations, my friends, from your buddy, Melvin Toaster. Listen, I think in honor of these Medal of Freedoms that Trump is handing out to his fascist friends, a new one that the devil could hand out is the weekly Rubber Chicken Award. And of course, Rojo gets the very first one.
He's got to come accept it in person, though.
What are the qualifications? I mean, how do you win the Rubber Chicken Award, Melvin?
Well, I think engaging in fascist practices would be a good start. That would give you 130 members of Congress right off the 140 right off the bat. You're gonna spend a fortune in rubber chickens. I'm gonna buy stock in rubber chicken companies right now.
It's a great idea, Melvin. I do appreciate it. And Ron Johnson would win the first award, in your opinion. Melvin, do you think there's going to be any consequence to this phone call? Do you think any Republicans will repudiate what this president has done, continues to do, to try to stick it to the American people?
I think he means the Trump phone call, not your phone call, Melvin.
No, I appreciate. Yeah, I know I'm in trouble, but no, they on Twitter, their Republicans are coming out. Some senators have come out, or people in Congress rather have come out and they've had enough. A few of them have come out and said that it's time to move on and certify the election. Obviously, Tom Cotton lost his nads and came out and this morning, I think it was, or yes, was it this morning that he?
Well, is that a sign of weakness, or should we give him some credit for living in the same reality that we live in, Melvin?
Can you really give Tom Cotton any credit for anything? It had to be a plan of some kind.
Cotton, Tom, I agree. Probably not a lot of credit merited. Melvin, appreciate your call. Be like Melvin. Join us on the phones at 844-967-2789.
I also saw Chris Christie on CNN pushing back against this entire process as well, saying, I voted for him and I supported him, etc. But, time to move on. Biden won. Seemingly, it's the
hell you say?
Seemingly, it's the Republicans who find their spine, are either, no longer running for office or have presidential aspirations of their own.
The Republicans that found their spine, and it was nearly all of them, when they didn't want the American people to have a $2,000 direct stimulus check. Then they stood up to Trump.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Good point.
First courageous act of most of their political careers, at least during the Trump presidency. Well, Dom, you got a few House Republicans. They're all Trump supportive. The headline at the CNN at this hour, Manu Raju reporting, House Republicans rush to Trump's defense over Georgia call as Democrats prep a censure resolution. Let's skip the censure, go straight to impeachment 2.0. I'm going to read briefly. Many conservative House Republicans defended President Donald Trump in the aftermath of his phone call demanding Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, find the votes needed for him to win the elections in the state, as Democrats began drafting resolution seeking to censure Trump over the matter. After House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy downplayed Trump's stunning demand, other Republicans rushed to his defense, and some refused to take issue with the president's actions. I wasn't involved in the call, said Minnesota Rep. Tom Emmer, who chairs the House GOP's campaign arm. You're proudest, Minnesota.
I have no idea. I wasn't there. Who knows?
You got your own Ron Johnson. I'm going to read on Rep. Paul Gosser, a conservative Arizona Republican, who is joining his colleagues' effort to overturn the election results on Wednesday, contended that Trump's call was a simple expression of enormous frustration. Politically correct speech doesn't run well, Gosser said when asked about Trump. Is that the problem?
So if you pull the gangster, I want him dead. I want his house burned down. I want to go there and urinate on the ashes. That's just expressing frustration, not soliciting murder for hire.
His wife dead, his children dead, his pets dead.
No, I was just mad.
Ohio GOP Rep. Jim Jordan, a leader of the congressional effort to overturn the elections, argued that Trump's call was similar to the impeachment fight and the president's call with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky.
Yeah, that's the problem, Jim.
That's why I'm calling for impeachment 2.0, where Trump asked for the investigation into the Bidens. I got no concern, Jordan said, but you guys in the press and the Democrats are always going to make a big issue of it like you did with the call to Zelensky. No, it was a perfect phone call, Tom.
Just ask him.
Asked if Trump's call could cut into GOP support on Wednesday, Jordan said it wouldn't. We got huge support. It's growing, and I think it will continue to grow. Which just tells you these Republicans are without shame or conscience.
Jim Jordan, apparently going to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He's a big supporter of the president.
All you got to do is give the man a little bit of cover fire. All he really wants, Tom, loyalty. Isn't that all we really all want?
Well, then you got to give it, don't you? 844-967-2789. Catherine from Madison, you will be next. Thank you, Catherine. What do you got for us today?
Hey, Catherine.
Hi, John and crew. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
I've got a slightly different topic again. You guys are talking about the main article that was on the Wisconsin State Journal today. And on the same page one, they had a great article on how to reduce CO2 in Madison and the cities, and how to help bring our CO2 down and save money on buildings. I don't know if you saw that article on page one.
Give the people the synopsis of the article. What is the way? What is the best idea that you read?
Okay. The best idea is that by reducing CO2 with things like heat exchangers and better building envelopes and the type of glass they use, they will actually save money in the long run, because the less energy you use, obviously, the cheaper your bills will be. I mean, that's not rocket science. Just if you pay less for your bill, if you use less energy.
Catherine, that sounds like some sort of socialist Green New Deal.
Right?
Next, you're going to be telling us to retrofit the lights and seal up the leaky windows. Seems like excellent advice, Catherine. I'm sorry we don't have more time to give to it. But for those of you in Wisconsin, stick around. We're going to have our happiest happy hour yet. The first one of the new year. It's 2021. Want to thank our fine guest, former U.S. Attorney James Santelle. Now stick around. Those of you in Wisconsin, at least, live coverage on AM 950, local coverage. But our Wisconsin coverage is going to include Christine Sinicki, a fine Democratic state rep. Thanks for listening, AM 950. The rest of you, stick around to the end.
Good heavens. Are you still trying to win?
You still here?
Don't talk to me that way.
I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on his ashes.
Go home.
Jimmy, crazy local music supporters have surrounded the studio. Take a look.
What do the signs say?
Support local music, Double dipping is a right, and I love the Jimmies.
What do they want?
Live local music, Jimmy. Catch MaxSync Radio every Saturday evening for the best of local music from Wisconsin. And live music performed in the Devil's Lair. Go to MaxSyncRadio.com for the live music schedule. It's MaxSync Radio, Saturdays at 6 on Devil Radio 92.7.
Give them what they want, rocker.
Stream the Devils and progressive news and talk 24/7 at the Devil's Advocates Radio Network, Wisconsin. That's DARNWI.com. That's DARNWI.com.
Hey, it's Pizza Box Mike. I've got a show outside the Pizza Box. Be sure to listen on Saturdays at noon on Devil Radio. There is a reason why they won't let me on Facebook anymore.
You're listening to W224EG and WTTN 1580 AM, always streaming at devilradio927.com.
P News. I'm Ed Donahue. Tonight in Georgia, President Trump will speak at a rally on the night before two Senate runoffs in that state. At stake is the party that controls the U.S. Senate. Just a few days ago, President Trump spoke on the phone with the Secretary of State in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger. He talked about finding enough votes to overturn Joe Biden's presidential victory there. Gabriel Sterling is with the Secretary of State's office.
I personally found it to be something that was not normal, out of place, and nobody I know who would be president would do something like that to a Secretary of State.
The president talked about raising the prospect of a criminal offense if officials did not change the vote count. The AP's Julie Pace reports some in the GOP are claiming election fraud and then urging people to vote tomorrow in Georgia.
Those two priorities seem to be running into each other right now. I think it is very difficult for Republicans to thread this needle when you are both encouraging people to show up to vote and telling them that the election in November was rigged.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is fearing what's ahead with an expected surge in post-holiday coronavirus cases. They want to get patients home from hospitals and on home oxygen.
This is part of the larger strategy in terms of what the Army Corps is doing, but also what we're trying to do by getting people to move into home environments and reduce the utilization of those oxygen systems.
The process is speeding up to get people vaccinated. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio says prior to this week, 100,000 got the shot.
By the time you get to the end of the month, I expect us to be at a clip of about 400,000 vaccinations a week. So the groundwork is laid. Now it's time to put this into action on a 24/7 basis.
Court documents from Wisconsin show a pharmacist accused of ruining doses of the vaccine felt the world was crashing down and believed the shots would mutate people's DNA. The Dow down 382 points. This is AP News.
Donors choose. Support a classroom. Build a future. Did you know that every year, public school teachers spend nearly $500 of their own money for student supplies? Let's do the math. That comes out to over $1.2 billion a year. And that's just not right. At Donors Choose, we want students and teachers to have the tools they need for a great education. And now, more than ever, they need your help. Here's what you can do. Go to DonorsChoose.org and choose from teachers' requests that support reading, math, science, history, and more. Once a request is funded, we'll take care of shipping everything directly to the teacher. It's that easy. You'll receive thank you letters and photos from students and teachers and a report of how every dollar was spent. Teachers' needs have never been greater. Learn more at DonorsChoose.org. Donors Choose. Support a classroom. Build a future.
Furnished by Donors Choose.
President
America has chosen Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to lead our country. Now it's time to get to work. Time to expand healthcare and tackle the coronavirus pandemic. Time to restore our democracy and unify our nation. It's time to put this administration to work for us. Text ACT to 668-366 to join the Move On movement to build an America for all. MoveOn.org. Political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
At Chaz Design Build, our tagline is building a better world, one remodeled home at a time. Simply stated, we want to be a part of the solution to leave the world better than we found it. That's why we've invested in a 20 kilowatt solar array, which provides over 90% of our electrical demand at our shop, office, and design studio. And that's why we invest in local causes which provide opportunities and which confront structural inequality. At Chad's Design Build, we are proud to partner with you. building a better world, one remodeled home at a time.
Stream the Devils and Progressive News and Talk 24/7 at the Devil's Advocates Radio Network, Wisconsin. That's DARNWI.com. That's DARNWI.com.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
Hey, it's Pizza Box Mike. I've got a show outside the Pizza Box. Be sure to listen on Saturdays at noon on Devil Radio. There is a reason why they won't let me on Facebook anymore.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines for Monday, January 4th. Local event and entertainment industries are now seeing hope in vaccines and looking for clarity, cooperation, and nuance from public health officials to create a safe reopening and recovery in 2021. A recent survey by the local chapter of the National Association of Catering and Events shows over half of responding Dane County venues and event-related businesses lost 75 to 100% of 2020 revenues. After announcing on December 28th that she had tested positive for COVID-19, Representative Gwen Moore voted from the House floor yesterday. She put out a statement that she was medically cleared to travel and her quarantine period had ended. Forecast of dense fog throughout the morning today with overcast skies this afternoon and a slight chance for flurries. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we are sliding into the very first 4 o'clock happy hour of the new year.
Excellent.
And I'm feeling happy. And you have done some fine booking. We got some fine guests coming up later in the week. Tomorrow, Keith Ellison from Minnesota.
The Minnesota Attorney General, Keith Ellison.
Former congressman, former DNC guy. And then on Wednesday, a crowd favorite, Greg Palast. Investigative journalist Greg Palast will be back.
And that will be after the Georgia election results presumably come in, I would hope.
And Greg has been tweeting out he's got a new story about Georgia. Breaking news. He's going to break it for us.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So that will be on Wednesday. And tomorrow, of course, we got the Georgia runoff. And Wednesday, we've got the Dirty Dozen doing whatever they intend to do during the electoral college count. And of course, the breaking news, Dom, the stunning news over the course of the weekend, the audio released of Trump threatening a Georgia elections official. And above and beyond that, a Milwaukee-based attorney, or at least a attorney, let me just read the headline, Daniel Bice.
Okay.
Don't want to screw it up. Milwaukee law firm concerned by attorney's role in Trump call trying to upend Georgia election results. You heard about this, right, Dom? Let's share it with the audience. A Milwaukee-based law firm is distancing itself from one of the attorneys involved in President Donald Trump's disturbing call trying to overturn the results of the Georgia election. No, completely justified in doing so. Her name, Cleta Mitchell. Cleta.
Cletus?
No, just Cleta. An unusual name, I will grant you, though, Dom. A partner at Foley and Laudner participated in the Saturday call in which Trump pressured the Georgia Secretary of State to find, like 12,000 votes to help Trump win the state's election. In a statement, a spokesman for Foley said the firm does not represent, in the quote, any party seeking to contest the results of the presidential election. We are aware of and are concerned by Miss Mitchell's, that's Cleta's, participation in the January 2 conference call and are working to understand her involvement more thoroughly. According to Dan Farrell, he's the director of communications at Foley and Laudner. Farrell added that the firm made a decision in November not to take any clients involved in any matters related to the November presidential election. Former VP Joe Biden, a Democrat, defeated Trump with 306 electoral votes to Trump's 232. Not until you count them, right, Dom? Members of Congress will meet on Wednesday to certify the results of the election. A minority group of Republicans, including your buddy Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, are expected to object to Biden's victory.
Of course they are, Crudy. Daniel Bice in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. In his statement, Farrell said the firm did allow for its attorneys to participate in recounts and related matters as long as they were acting as private citizens and not serving as legal advisors. Mitchell was not immediately available to respond to the statement from her firm. Earlier, she issued a statement to the Washington Post defending the disturbing call. Ooh, tell me more. She said the Georgia Secretary of State has made many statements over the past 2 months that are simply not correct, and everyone involved with the efforts on behalf of the president's election challenge has said the same thing. Show us your records on which you rely to make these statements that our numbers are wrong.
So disprove our negative.
Yes.
Prove our numbers are wrong.
Mitchell,
they counted the vote 3 times.
And there have been over 60 lawsuits. And the Trump campaign has lost Ms. Mitchell. Mitchell and her law firm have come under fire on social media since details of Trump's hour-long call to Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger over the weekend were first reported by the Post. The first-term Republican president was joined on the call by White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and several lawyers, including Mitchell, who Meadows said, quote, is not the attorney of record, but has been involved. This was the first that the public knew that she was involved in the attempt to overturn the results of the November contest. Is there a point that one's attorney becomes part of a client's criminal conspiracy? ? Former U.S. Rep. Tom Colburn, a Republican from Missouri, tweeted, asking because on the Trump tape, his attorney, Cleta Mitchell, is involved with offering questions and comments to the Georgia Secretary of State. The Lincoln Project, which was formed by anti-Trump Republicans, posted Foley's Milwaukee and Washington, D.C. phone numbers in a post that had been retweeted more than 7,500 times by Monday afternoon. Cleta Mitchell, Foley, and Larder was on the phone with Donald Trump when he threatened and pressured Georgia Secretary of State to overturn the will of Georgia voters. How does that make you feel? ? Tell them.
A little angry, a little hangry, but, a snack might cure that.
Always. Mitchell, who's based in D.C., has represented a number of right-wing and GOP groups, including the National Republican Senatorial Committee, the National Rifle Association, and the American Legislative Exchange Council, known as ALEC, Rudy.
The NRA and ALEC, what fine clients she selects.
But wait, there's more. She's also a longtime board member and the current board secretary for the Milwaukee-based Bradley Foundation, which has poured hundreds of millions of dollars into building the national conservative political infrastructure. The Bradley the Bradley Foundation said in a statement that it cannot be involved in politics because it's a nonprofit. We do not comment on our directors, and it certainly would not be appropriate for us to discuss a director's clients or legal practice, the foundation said. During the Saturday phone call, Mitchell pressed the Georgia Secretary of State about his investigation into the state election. His probe confirmed that Biden narrowly won the state, earning its 16 electoral votes. You have data and records that we don't have access to, and you keep telling us and making public statements that you've investigated this, and nothing to see here, Mitchell said, according to the transcript in the Wall Street Journal. But we don't know about that. All we know is what you tell us. But Raffensperger pushed back, quote, President Trump, we've had several lawsuits, and we've had to respond in court to the lawsuits and the contentions, the Secretary of State said. We don't agree that you have won. Daniel Bice in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
Well, look a little harder and find someone that thinks I did win. Start with Ron Johnson and some of those Senate Republicans.
The Bradley Foundation secretary, board member of Foley and Larder legal firm, a partner in their legal firm, also represented the NRA and ALEC. Oh, she sounds like a trooper, this one.
The company you keep.
I mean, I would give her the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Dominic wanted to talk about the assembly. It went into session, convened for the first time in like 9 months today. Masks optional.
Freaking Republicans.
And we talked about a couple of Republican backbenchers that, were the plaintiffs in this ill-advised lawsuit, not in the Wisconsin federal courts, but in the DC federal courts. And the federal judge there is suggesting that perhaps their attorney should be sanctioned. But what about the broader assembly? Well, Dominic, I'm going to read. Patrick Mollyback at the Journal Sentinel. The state legislature kicked off its 2-year session Monday with an inauguration unlike any before it, with Assembly Democrats skipping the event because they thought the COVID-19 precautions were inadequate. Masks optional, that's not enough precautions for you. Personal responsibility and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we don't need any laws or rules. People do the right thing, like Robin Voss has suggested.
During the ceremony, Assembly Speaker Robin Voss of Rochester announced he had reached a deal with his fellow Republicans who control the state Senate on new coronavirus legislation. Don't bother talking to Evers. He said he wanted to act on the bill this week, but he did not immediately release a copy of it. It was unclear if it could win the support of Democratic Governor Tony Evers, who renewed a call earlier in the day for compromise legislation. Compromise, that's not really a word in Speaker Voss's vocabulary, is it, Dom? Also Monday, Republicans in the Senate and Assembly voted to reopen the state capitol. Good, and go check out my devil tree.
Make sure you get that garland, man.
Which had been mostly closed to the public for months because of the pandemic, but it was unclear whether their vote would change anything because the Evers administration controls the Capitol. For the Assembly inauguration, members of both parties wore masks. In the Senate, Democrats wore them, but many Republicans did not. I'm looking at you, it was
Dewey Strobel.
Dewey Strobel and the gang. Andre Jack, no mask, I guarantee it. In both houses, lawmakers kept 1 or 2 desks between them to limit the spread of COVID-19. Yeah, I'm glad they're limiting the spread. They're not super spreading it. Democratic Senator Lena Taylor of Milwaukee pleaded with Republicans who eschewed masks to think about Wisconsinites who are more vulnerable. Here's what Lena said. Anybody in this body not wearing a mask does not care about my father, who is a blood type that is most susceptible. I have the right to tell you I do not appreciate the disregard for life. I have the right to tell you that some people are more susceptible, and your leadership is not about you. It's about everyone. Strongly worded. In the Senate, about half the Democrats participated in person, about half by phone. Assembly Democrats were sworn in December, and most of them didn't attend Monday's inauguration. One more quote. Assembly Minority Leader Gordon Hintz of Oshkosh. I can tell you our constituents care far more that we are putting something out there, that we are getting behind things, that we are calling for bipartisan action than they do whether we're there for an in-person ceremony or not. And during his inauguration speech, Voss took a shot at the Democrats for staying off the floor. Today, we celebrate our Wisconsin bonds, not as Republicans or Democrats, even though Democrats aren't here, but as Wisconsinites. We celebrate all that is good in our state that unites us. But apparently, not wearing a mask is not one of those things.
Security, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services reporting today another 1,407 infections out of 3,912 tests given. That is a 36% infection rate. Another 9 people have died and another 51 hospitalized here in Wisconsin.
Now, Rebecca Bradley swore in a number of the Republican senators, including Dirty Dewey Strobel. And Rebecca Bradley says this: usually we have a little more ceremony, but it is pandemic time. Really? I couldn't tell. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Your phone calls always welcome. 844-967-2789.
I think people will do what's right. They don't need a government mandate to do that.
The data you have is wrong.
The Devil's Advocates. Ass, grass, or cash. Nobody rides for free.
Santa, what if the kids have unrealistic requests? Like they want a dog for Christmas, and you know the parents don't want to get another dog for Christmas.
Actually, Santa doesn't carry live animals. And there's a reason for that. That 36,000 feet, a live animal and a little wind current doesn't make a pretty sight.
I swear to God, I thought turkeys could fly.
Yeah, but puppies can't.
We did it. All across this nation, voters like you turned out in record numbers to elect Joe Biden. Now, it's time to come together to address the issue that matter most, tackling climate change, expanding access to healthcare, ensuring racial justice, and putting Americans back to work. Text ACT to 668366 to join the Move On movement to build an America for all. MoveOn.org political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Hold.moveon.org not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
What do basketball, choir, drama club, and marching band all have in common? They're all high school activities that offer learning opportunities not necessarily found in the classroom. They take up just a fraction of a typical Wisconsin high school's budget, and they go a long way to giving young people the tools they need to thrive. High school activities, they're more than extracurricular. They're extra important, too. This message presented by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
The Devil's Advocates.
There are lots of people that haven't made up their mind on this race, and you think, how could that be? No, there are. There are a lot of people that could still make a decision all the way on election day down.
Undecided voters are the biggest idiots on the planet. Try giving short, simple answers.
Like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. Yosemites.
Because freedom. When they go low, we get high. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. It is the 420 break, and you can join us on the phones at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, unexpected pushback on this Dirty Dozen Electoral College overturning plan of Ted Cruz, Ron Johnson, and others. Trump, obviously, the motivation behind this, the fear of Trump, one must guess, or just general
the fear of Trump,
maybe craziness.
But some chopped up, uncut power, man, they can't get enough of that.
Grind it up and snort it up.
That's right, baby.
Paul Ryan.
Who?
Paul Ryan.
I vaguely remember
Speaker
that
of the
guy.
House. He excoriates planned GOP effort to challenge Biden's electoral college win as anti-democratic and anti-conservative. I thought him and Trump had merged their agendas.
I believe that's what he
The
did
irony
say.
is a little rich here these days.
Yes, it is.
Former House Speaker Paul Ryan excoriated fellow Republicans Sunday in a rare statement that called the planned GOP effort to challenge President-elect Joe Biden's win anti-democratic and anti-conservative. Ryan, a Republican from Wisconsin who served as House Speaker from 15 to 19, has seldom weighed in on events since leaving office, but issued a lengthy statement decrying Republican plans to object to certifying the Electoral College results in a joint session of Congress on Wednesday. 12 incoming and sitting Republican senators and dozens of GOP House members plan to object to the count over President Donald Trump's baseless claims of widespread voter fraud. It's because you won't show us the evidence. I'm sure the evidence is in the numbers you have.
Right. Prove that I'm wrong.
Here's a quote from Paul Ryan. Efforts to reject the votes of the Electoral College and sow doubt about Joe Biden's victory strike at the foundation of our republic. It is difficult to conceive of a more anti-democratic and anti-conservative act than a federal intervention to overturn the results of state-certified elections and disenfranchise millions of Americans. The fact that this effort will fail does not mean it will not do significant damage to the American democracy. Ryan asked his fellow conservatives to think about the precedent that it would set and noted that Trump's campaign failed efforts in the court to challenge election results in a number of states. A little bit more from Paul Ryan. The Trump campaign has had ample opportunity to challenge election results, and those efforts failed for a lack of evidence. The legal process was exhausted, and the results were decisively confirmed. The Department of Justice, too, found no basis for overturning the result. If states wish to reform their process for future elections, that's their prerogative. But Joe Biden's victory is entirely legitimate.
Crudy, Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican from Missouri, was the first senator to announce plans to object to the electoral vote count. Since then, a batch of 11 GOP senators joined in a similar effort, vowing to object to the certification of Biden's win when Congress meets in a joint session on Wednesday if an election commission was not formed to investigate the election and claims of fraud. Now, again, what a joke. The claims of fraud have been investigated. They've been taken to court, and they've lost.
Well, hell, even Rojo had a committee hearing.
Crudy, while the effort to overturn results is doomed to fail, the objections will launch a dramatic and lengthy process that includes 2 hours of debate and a vote in each chamber for each state that is challenged. The process is likely to stretch into an all-day event that will start the new Congress off with a divisive political battle. Ryan, who ran as the Republican Party's nominee for vice president on the ticket when Senator Mitt Romney.
Oh, that seems so long
in
ago.
2012. Wow, it does, doesn't it? Has rarely spoken out since leaving office. He was often a target of Trump while serving in the House and continued to receive scorn even after leaving the House. In one of his only other notable remarks since departing Washington, Ryan was quoted in American Carnage, a 2019 book by political reporter Tim Alberta, as saying that Trump didn't know anything about government and retirement was an escape hatch because he couldn't stand another 2 years with Trump as president. Trump has said that Republicans like Ryan almost killed the party, calling him weak, ineffective, and stupid. The president has also called Ryan a baby and said he couldn't get him out of Congress fast enough. Ryan has remained mum on responding to many of Trump's attacks, trying to stay out of the fray, even as his friend and former running mate Romney became Trump's #1 GOP target. In late November, Ryan reportedly called for Trump to concede and drop his lawsuits, telling virtual banking conference attendees Trump's campaign was offering baseless conspiracy theories. Former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, breaking his silence, coming out against Donald Trump.
You can't trust Paul Ryan. He's a rhino, and he's a Romney Republican.
Well, and Chris Christie, and now Tom Cotton. But hell, we got the dirty dozen Republicans. They are all down with the program.
Yes, they are.
I mean, what a show this is.
You act like you're not all down.
With what? With this process? With this charade? With this joke?
I prefer charade. Real quick, as we go to break here, Fancy Brian, I was Netflixing and chilling over the course of the weekend and saw you in Shameless.
Yeah, I did that a couple years ago. I got to meet Bill Macy, which was awesome. I nearly ran him over. There's a tiny car that they jammed me into with about 4 layers of I don't know why they have to put like 15 layers on me, but I'm in the car. I can't. For some reason, it has a stick shift that jams into my thigh.
You're a big fella.
I'm trying to pop it into gear and at the same time stop it, but I can't use the parking brake at all because they had duct taped it down. On top of that, I have my co-star who's got Down syndrome, and she's fantastic and wonderful and everything, but she's telling me stories about high school, and I can't breathe because it's so hot and she's cold, and she's talking so I can't hear my cue when I go, and I nearly hit both the camera, which is on one side, my Rick LaFave, the stunt guy on the left side, and I nearly hit Bill Macy at least 2 or 3 times, but luckily we got the thing done. And it turns out me being so distracted led to my best acting job ever. So if I don't think about it whatsoever, I'm really good.
And then your co-star punched Frank, the character in Shameless.
Yeah, he
punched him in the nards.
He got punched in the nards.
So
you declared nice.
So the lesson is less prep, more action.
Absolutely.
All right.
A little less conversation, a little more action. Come back with us, Christine Sinicki, a fine Democratic state rep from Wisconsin, who I believe skipped the inauguration today.
I want to thank the President of the United States for his steadfast leadership.
This thing's going away. It will go away like things go away.
I'm really proud of what we've been able to do.
So enjoy your life, ladies and gentlemen, because we're very high
From Portage to Watertown, Devil Radio on WTTN 1580 AM is essential radio to get you through your day.
Do you know the Devil's Advocate started as a podcast, just two buddies talking into an iPad because we thought we had something to say? Do you have something to say? Let Devil Radio guide you. Launch your own broadcast quality podcast. Utilize our studios and staff, our hosting platform, and we will even promote your podcast on Devil Radio. Monthly packages start at just $295. Devil Radio's podcast platform to launch immediately after the election. Call today to learn more. 608-819-TALK.
Jimmy, crazy local music supporters have surrounded the studio. Take a look.
What do the signs say?
Support local music, double dipping is a right, and I love the Jimmies.
What do they want?
Live local music, Jimmy. Catch MaxInc Radio every Saturday evening for the best of local music from Wisconsin. Live music performed in the Devil's Lair. Go to MaxIncRadio.com for the live music schedule. It's MaxInc Radio, Saturdays at 6 on Devil Radio 92.7.
Give them what they want.
Georgia, I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. President Trump holds a rally this evening in Georgia for two Republican senators in a runoff election tomorrow. On Saturday, he pressured Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, to find enough votes to swing the election to him. President-elect Joe Biden, during an Atlanta campaign stop for the two Democrats in the runoffs, says Trump continues to show he shouldn't be president.
The president spends more time whining and complaining than doing something about the problem. I don't know why he still wants the job. He doesn't want to do the work.
The campaign to vanquish the coronavirus picks up speed. Britain dispensing a second vaccine. India authorizes its first shots. U.S. government officials say the pace of vaccinations accelerated markedly over the weekend. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, says 1.5 million shots were dispensed over 72 hours, bringing the running total to about 4 million. I'm Tim McGuire.
Donors choose. Support a classroom. Build a future. Did you know that every year, public school teachers spend nearly $500 of their own money for student supplies? Let's do the math. That comes out to over $1.2 billion a year. And that's just not right. At Donors Choose, we want students and teachers to have the tools they need for a great education. And now, more than ever, they need your help. Here's what you can do. Go to DonorsChoose.org and choose from teachers' requests that support reading, math, science, history, and more. Once a request is funded, we'll take care of shipping everything directly to the teacher. It's that easy. You'll receive thank you letters and photos from students and teachers and a report of how every dollar was spent. Teachers' needs have never been greater. Learn more at DonorsChoose.org. Donors Choose. Support a classroom. Build a future.
Furnished by Donors Choose.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines for Monday, January 4th. Senator Ron Johnson has joined 10 other Republican senators in vowing to reject presidential electors from disputed states when Congress meets to count electoral votes on January 6th, unless there is an audit of election results. The group cites unprecedented allegations of voter fraud, violations and lax enforcement of election laws, and voting irregularities as reasons to challenge electors while calling for an electoral commission to conduct an emergency audit of presidential votes. Senator Johnson joins this effort after the Trump campaign has had 6 legal challenges to overturn Wisconsin's election results, either dismissed or denied since Election Day. He is the only senator to join the effort who comes from a state Biden won in the 2020 election. Forecast of dense fog throughout the morning today with overcast skies this afternoon and a slight chance for flurries. You're listening to Devil Radio.
The Devil's Advocates, tackling the issues you're not allowed to talk about at the dinner table.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the Wisconsin Happy Hour. It continues with a fine guest. She's joined us live via phone. She is Christine Sinicki, a fine Democratic state rep. Christine, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, Christine, it's kind of like opening day, a big day. The legislative session has begun, and it's the first time that the Republican leadership's called this body into session in like 9 months, Christine. So you think it'd be a big ceremonious day, but the mask optional policy apparently troubled some of your Democratic colleagues and yourself. Christine, tell us a little more about it.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? How many months has it been? 9 months since we've actually been in session. This January 4th of this year is the day of our glorious inauguration, as you called it. It's a day that is filled with all kinds of pomp and circumstances and, hope and bipartisan, kumbaya. Well, that didn't happen this year because, unfortunately, the speaker has decided that he needs to flex his power and pretty much show he's in charge and not really listen to what the Democratic members have to say about masks and social distancing and COVID and keeping ourselves safe. So we opted to be sworn in virtually a week ago by the governor and forego today's festivities.
Christine, my understanding, we know about Jimmy Anderson. We know that he's had some health concerns and does not want to attend these sessions, especially mask optional sessions in the Wisconsin Republican-controlled assembly. But Christine, not to be overly personal, but you've had some of your own health concerns. What are they?
Yeah, no problem. It's not something that I live my life by, but about 15 years ago, I was diagnosed and I had a heart attack with congestive heart failure. Most people kind of look at me and say, no, but I am. I try to live my life as normal as possible. However, if I were to catch COVID, that would be, it would weaken my heart even more than it is right now. And I probably would not survive because one of the symptoms of COVID or effects of COVID, it does attack your lungs and your heart. I have a friend that had COVID and now has heart issues. You have other members. We have a member that had a kidney transplant just a couple of years ago. There's no way she can be in that room. And of course, Jimmy Anderson, who we all know his story and what he went through to be allowed to meet virtually on days that he just could not get to the Capitol. There is no reason why we can't meet virtually. We're all set up. We did it once. It was successful. I don't know why we cannot do it again.
Christine, one of the last days before the Christmas recess, if you will, Dominic and I took a deviltry up to the Wisconsin State Capitol.
I loved it.
And we watched the Republicans put up their own fake Christmas tree and sing COVID spreading carols around it. But the most troubling part, Christine, none of them wore masks. They still reject the science. They're still considering this COVID a hoax. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, my thoughts are, they need to talk to people who have lost loved ones to this hoax. I know several of my friends have lost their loved ones to COVID. It is not a hoax. I don't know what it is with them, if they're just trying to prove, if it's just a way of getting back at the governor or what it is. But, the governor, there is a mask mandate in the state. And it does actually cover the public areas of the Capitol. I've asked the governor and the administration and my leadership to put some pressure on the administration to start enforcing the mandate in the public areas of the Capitol. Because right now they're not. They can do what they want in their own offices, but when you're in the public spots of the Capitol, you're under a mask mandate and no one is enforcing it. When I go in, I try to go in early in the morning before all the COVID idiots come. And I go directly to my office and lock the door so nobody can come in. We've all seen them online, like you said, the Christmas tree fiasco. No mask, nothing. Here's Merry Christmas. Here's your gift of COVID on the side. I don't get it.
Christine, we know that today was essentially ceremonial, but effectively going forward to properly legislate, to properly attend committee hearings, etc., guys like Jimmy Anderson, perhaps yourself and others, you're going to need some sort of accommodation. And we know even prior to the pandemic, Robin Vos offered no accommodation on the assembly side, even though that's permitted behavior on the Senate side. You can video conference in to committee hearings on the Senate side. Christine, is there any workable plan going forward?
Well, we have our leadership, the Democratic leadership, has been trying to negotiate with Republicans, and what we're asking for is really actually very easy to do. We want a mask mandate, number one. We want the ability to social distance. Like you guys have been in the Capitol. You've been in the hearing rooms. You know how small those rooms are. There are times when those rooms are so jam-packed that I literally have to climb over people's legs to get out. There will not be any social distancing in those rooms. So we've asked that they kind of space the committee meetings out so that they can be held in the bigger committee rooms so that we can social distance. It's doable. It's very doable. But so far he has refused to accommodate what we've asked for. And until that's done, most of us are not comfortable going in.
Folks, you're listening to I'm sorry, Christine Sinicki, Rep. Christine Sinicki from Wisconsin's 20th Assembly District. My apologies for interrupting you, Christine. As Crudy mentioned, the Republicans have not gavelled into session in 8 or 9 months. Perhaps lots of time to put down the priorities and perhaps work with the Democrats on the other side of the aisle. Has there been any indication as to what the priorities are going to be for this session?
Well, I mean, the Democratic caucus did hold a press conference this morning. We laid out our agenda to address COVID. And what we feel needs to be done to get through this. Hopefully we have a light at the end of the tunnel. But so far, the Republicans have not reached out to us to try to work with us, to try to come up with a compromise on this. This is all about showing their power. It's all it is. And I don't know if you've looked at their plan, but it is horrible. It is so unworkable. But the biggest issue I have with their plan, they want to control the vaccinations. Why would we allow Republican legislators of any party to control who gets a vaccination and who doesn't? To me, that's just like unfathomable.
Well, I mean, Republicans seemingly, Christine, are all about reaching out and grabbing as much power as they can, no matter what it is, and presumably no matter what the circumstances are. It is in your workings in your press conference, Christine, or any of the Republicans, has there been any talk or discussion with regards to perhaps additional targeted relief for Wisconsin families, Wisconsin businesses, and so forth?
That's something we're looking at, but as most people know, every state, every local government revenues are way down. So we need to figure out a creative way to do that. And, hopefully, depending on what happens around Georgia, we will have a majority in the U.S. Senate that will be serious about getting help to our small businesses, especially restaurants. I don't know how they're making it, and they're struggling. And I'm really concerned that most of them are not going to make it through the winter months. So we do need to take a look at that and figure out how, if we can't finance it, we need to get the federal government to put some money out there for it.
And I guess in that same vein, of course, the news over the weekend and much discussed today, this phone call between President Trump and Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. Christine, did you hear some of that? Did you hear Donald Trump say he's looking to just find 11,000 votes? What was your sense, and have you heard any response or thoughts from your Republican friends in this regard?
I have not heard from any of my Republican friends. Most of my Republican friends are moderate Republicans who are like just shaking their heads, like I have been. In fact, no, I take that back. I do have a Republican friend that sent Ron Johnson a letter just telling him that he's crazy. I have never, I've been in the political arena for 30 years now. I have never seen anything like this. Not even 2000 was like this. This man is desperate. And I mean, to call the Secretary of State in Georgia and say, just find 11,000 votes, you can do it. Well, hello, isn't that voter fraud right there?
Sounds like it.
Yeah. It's just, I cannot wait to get to January 20th. And I can see that man walk out of the White House for the last time.
Christine Sinicki, our fine guest, live via phone for a few more minutes. Christine, I got to ask you about the vaccination rollout. You mentioned the Republicans would like to take charge. And my understanding is there are a number of the 2 different currently eligible vaccines here in the state of Wisconsin. We won't talk about the pharmacist at this point, the Moderna wrecking pharmacist. But Christine, I'm more concerned about just the general practice, the distribution of these vaccines. What is the process and how do I get in line?
Good question. I think we're all kind of waiting to know exactly what the process in Wisconsin is going to be. There really has not been a specific plan put in place yet. I'm pretty sure the governor is talking to the experts and the health officials to figure out what the best way to do this is. Because, like I said, I've got congestive heart failure. I want that vaccine. But, I know I have to wait my turn in line. But, yeah, it's been very slow in Wisconsin. And I think all the experts, the medical experts, the governor, DHS, they all need to sit down and figure out how they're going to roll this thing out faster. Because you know what? I do not want to spend the summer in my house again.
Nor I. Yeah. Christine, when there are sufficient vaccines available, do you intend to publicly get vaccinated to set an example for your constituents, et cetera?
Tell you the truth, I am afraid of needles, but I will do it. I will do it. I mean, I'm going to get the vaccine either way, even though I'm afraid of needles, of course. But if it would send a message to people that look, the vaccine is safe. We all should be doing this not just to protect ourselves, but protect each other and our loved ones. I will do it publicly. If people want me to do that, to prove to them that I believe the vaccine is safe, I will do it.
And Christine, if these Republicans are unwilling to take the vaccine, I'm thinking of like Dirty Dewey Strobel and Andre Jock. If they're pandemic hoaxers, if they don't believe, Christine, do you think you could maybe hop in front of Andre Jock in line?
Oh, I absolutely would. I think anybody who's a non-believer, anybody that won't wear a mask, anybody that will not follow the safety protocols, they should be at the end of the line.
Yeah. Christine,
there's no reason. Yeah, they frustrate me. I won't swear, but yes, they frustrate me.
We appreciate you not swearing. Fine State Rep Christine Sinicki from Milwaukee. Christine, thank you for joining us here on the Devil's Advocates. We hope you have a safe and healthy 2021.
You too. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Christine.
Appreciate it. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. Your phone calls always welcome here during the Wisconsin Happy Hour. Going to the phones next at 844-967-2789. I'm envisioning Robin Vos, Speaker of the Assembly, like in full PPE, saying you're totally safe to be out, except for Jimmy Anderson and maybe Christine Sinicki and a handful of others. But, it's a risk we're willing to take with your help.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates phone lines. They're open for you.
If I were to guess, I have one name in mind.
Everybody!
You are incredibly...
All right, well, what does your church tell you about when people say that they're the second coming of God? My reason tells me the man is certifiable. I want your opinion, Gary.
I would say anybody who comes back and says that, I would say you'd be the Antichrist.
I am the chosen one.
So Trump is the Antichrist then, Gary, by that logic?
I'm not saying he is, but
he said he's the chosen one.
I am the chosen one.
Gary, by your biblical logic, Donald Trump is the Antichrist.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
Biden won because of you, because you stayed in line to vote even when you got tired, because you knew that your vote is power, because you understood what was at stake, and because you showed up, we now have the power. Text ACT to 668-366 to join the Move On movement to build an America for all. MoveOn.org. Political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
Scott Walker tweeting out from a La Quinta in a Rancho del Solio Ronald Reagan fashion shirt.
You know,
only
as a
available
guy
online.
who's wearing a Bernie Sanders shirt, how can you
Mine's
rip on a
bootleg.
guy for wearing a Ronald Reagan shirt?
Buddy, I got a Bernie bootleg on. This is cool on so many levels. You don't even know how cool I am.
I do not. If it could just be a little tighter.
The big and tall of political talk. Dom and Crute are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. If you got something to say, pick up the phone and call us right now. We promise we won't hang up on you. 844-967-2789.
No promises. I want to thank our most recent guest, a fine one friend of ours. She is State Rep Christine Sinicki of the great state of Wisconsin. Thank you, Christine.
AJ from Humboldt County, you are up. Happy New Year, AJ. What do you got for us today?
Well, I got a little news. You raised a question a little while ago about what the people on the Republican side of this are thinking about Trump's latest move.
Yeah.
I heard the tape. So this morning I got up early, my time, 3 o'clock, to listen to Hugh Hewitt. It's 5 your time, but he's got a big show on in the morning. And he played the entire hour-long tape. It is a 3-hour show. And so I listened to it piece by piece with him. And then it got to the part where he said, the president said, I'm putting you on notice, or something close to that language.
Yep.
I'm telling you now, and all that. That really soured Hugh. And then he had Newt Gingrich on and interviewed him and took his take on it. And it was similar. And the biggest takeaway from Gingrich was, if Trump wants to come back in 24, he needs to leave now and withdraw gracefully rather than do what he's doing. And so they're not happy. It's just two guys on the extreme right that are articulate, that are saying this kind of stuff. That's just this morning. So I think it's going to grow.
Hewitt.
Hewitt. Thanks, AJ. I think it is going to grow. And too little, too late, maybe. The Dirty Dozen, they're still going to do their thing. The 100+ Republicans in the House, they're going to do their thing. And I guess, as we talk with former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle, there is a process. This is a time for them to do it. But when you listen to what Trump, again, throwing wrenches in all their games. Trump can't help being Trump, right? He is a criminal at his heart. He's a wannabe gangster fascist dictator type, AJ, and he's continuing to put this, whatever's left of the GOP, to split that party. And there's going to be factions. Obviously, there's a big chunk that still support him, but there's also some of these more established types that probably never really did, but they're all about getting their judges, AJ, slowly starting to turn away from him.
Alleging voter fraud for fun and profit.
Right.
Dominic, one paragraph. This is a former FBI agent. Then we'll get back to the phones. Your final thoughts for this big Monday show at 844-967-2789. The question: should they impeach Trump again? Here is a pretty compelling case. A second reason impeachment is necessary is because Trump's action in this particular case embody almost every fear that the framers of the Constitution tried to guard against. In addition to Trump's obvious self-dealing and trying to abuse his power to benefit himself personally, he trampled on the principles of federalism and using his authority to strong-arm state officials and interfere in purely state matters. He also attempted to obstruct justice, not necessarily in a criminal sense, but in his refusal to acknowledge court decisions that have already rejected his claims and his effort to secretly work around them. And of course, he clearly hoped to disenfranchise millions of voters and establish rule by fiat, something our founders expressly rejected and rebelling against King George III in the first place. But other than that, he's right on the money.
Yeah, but King George, man, he had all that property. He really had it going on.
844, and Trump doesn't.
That's why he looks up to him.
844-967-2789. Robert from Monona. Welcome, Robert. What do you got for us?
Hey, Robert.
Hey, Devils. I was wondering if we could do some incentives to get people to take the vaccine, like beer or cigarettes or CBD, I guess. No, can't really do marijuana here in the state. But, I found some CBD that rivals the real stuff.
Well, if properly incentivized, Robert, I think we'd be lining up. All it would take is a brandy old-fashioned.
There you go. Just, your local bar could hand out brandy old-fashioned chips at the local CVS or Walgreens.
What if they handed out Packers tickets? If you took the shot, you got Packers playoff tickets.
I had sent something to the Packers saying, dudes, we need to make it an incentive for people to wear masks and get these numbers down to let people back into the game. Didn't hear anything back, obviously, but
Robert,
I figured that would have been a good idea too.
With your thoughts regarding incentivizing people to actually take the vaccine, is it your contention then that most people or not enough people would voluntarily do such a thing?
I agree. Not enough people would probably take the vaccine unless they were given something to do it with. Or, the right amount of people, if you know what I mean. Like, if we, you need a certain amount of people to take that vaccine to get rid of the virus. So, if, we got that little extra percentage to incentivize to do it, I think we'd probably get over that hump, flatten that curve.
Robert says loose joints for everybody.
I'm in.
I like that idea, Robert. You have an excellent avocation.
Crudy, I guess on this topic, I guess we have time for any more calls at 844-967-2789.
Fauci said we needed 90% vaccinated to reach herd immunity.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of motivation. Crudy, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reporting, Patrick Marley. Oh, hell, no, I just missed it. The gentleman in
the pharmacist,
Milwaukee, the pharmacist, suspected of intentionally spoiling 500 doses at a Grafton hospital because he believed they were unsafe. Well, he was released from jail today after a prosecutor indicated he's not positive the vaccine was actually destroyed. Stephen Brandenburg, 46 of Grafton, had been held on a probable cause statement from Grafton police that he likely committed 2 felonies. First-degree recklessly endangering safety, which carries a maximum penalty of 7.5 years, and criminal damage to property, which can result in up to 18 months in prison upon conviction. He appeared via Zoom in the Ozaukee County Jail after an initial appearance on Monday afternoon, as did his attorney, Jason Baltz of Mequon. His attorney later said that neither he nor his client wanted to comment to news media, but Ozaukee County DA Adam Gerald told Circuit Court Judge Paul Malloy that the hospital had walked back some of the information, that the vials in question have not since been destroyed, but are still in the hospital's possession and might even be viable. He said he's working with Moderna to possibly test that evidence. If the vaccine is still good, the most he could charge Brandenburg with would be attempted criminal damage to property, a misdemeanor.
So it's like when someone leaves out that leftover pizza, you can eat it, but it's kind of at your own risk. Would you take the leftover pizza vaccination, Dom, if it were offered to you today?
Hell yeah. But come on, man, this guy's a pharmacist. He understands presumably, medical technology, biology.
It's a new vaccination. And that Moderna, the advantage is you don't have to refrigerate it in the same way, at least. Thank you to our fine guest, former U.S. Attorney James Santelle, State Rep Christine Sinicki from Milwaukee. Thank you all for listening. Stick around. Our pal Earl Ingram featuring Sandy Williams. I know he loves it when Sandy comes around. And don't forget, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood with Alan Robinson at 6 o'clock. Thank you all for listening. The expanded edition. Welcome to AM 950 listeners. Thank you all for listening. Have a great night.
The data you have is wrong.
So you get nothing.
You lose.
Can we call that treason? Why not?